Beautiful. Right, sorted. I'm a bit of a mild panic at the moment. I only just got back from tour late yesterday, and it's just been manic today trying to catch up with everything.
Oh, shame, man. Where were you guys?
We were over in sort of Luxembourg, like the Ardennes Forest, that sort of region.
Oh, nice, yeah.
And we just touched the Nürburgring on Tuesday. And then from there, we headed through up to the Ardennes to stay in Spa for the final night. And that's when this big, massive snowstorm hit, just totally unexpected. And yeah, it was bad. We got stuck about, it's probably about 17 miles from the hotel, 18 miles from the hotel, just totally stranded. Had to abandon the bikes in a little village and get a taxi. And we had to stay for a day.
How many people in the group?
There were 16 of us in total, but one group was a husband and wife. They were pillions. They decided not to come to Nürburgring because it was quite cold that morning. So they went direct to the hotel, thankfully. So they didn't get anything to do with the snow, but 14 of us were out in the snow, and it was... Oh, yeah. We ended up just sitting in a hotel for a day, waiting for the rain to come and clear the snow. But we're all home now.
Ultimately... Those are the epic things that you remember. You know, you don't remember the easy rides and,
absolutely,
you know, what did I do 5 weeks ago? I don't know, you know, but you remember the snowstorm and getting stuck. And, you know, those are the memories that stay forever.
Absolutely. But, you know, as like one of the guides, there's me and another guy organised the whole thing. You kind of feel a little bit responsible, although it's like, you know, it's the weather. Yeah. It's an act of God, isn't it? It was like, well, oh, well. But, yeah, it's done.
But most likely, you know, if I have to guess, the guys that go on tour with you, they're probably, you know, accepting of these circumstances. You know, I think so. It wasn't bike tours, but other things. And you get some people that completely lose it. You know, they have no sense of things that can happen. You know, if it's not their way, then the whole world comes crashing down. Yeah. Anyway, glad you're here. Glad you made it. You know, no frostbite. Everybody's home safe and sound. So excellent.
Absolutely. It's all turned out good in the end, thankfully. Right. Awesome. So we got you on Brew Time. Thanks very much for coming on.
No, thank you for having me.
My pleasure. Are you okay just for us to crack on? I mean, we can start straight from there.
It's a Friday night. What a way to end the week. You know, having had the, you know, bump into you at the MCN. Yeah, Simon also said, "Oh, make sure you've got something to drink." So, you know, I'm good. I'll be well lubed up.
Excellent.
So let's make sure you know, we make the most of it.
Absolutely. I do not have a beer at hand, I'm afraid, but I have some fluids. So if you want to crack your beer open,
I don't have a beer. I thought, you know, given my heritage, I shouldn't say this, but I had a beer over lunchtime. So you know, I'm not going to have a beer, but I thought I'd have some of my favorite South African red. It's a Mireless Rubicon. It's a Bordeaux blend. It's you know, it's one of those really good South African wines. So.
Loving it. Bringing a bit of highbrow to Brew Time.
Say again?
You're bringing a bit of highbrow to Brew Time. Bit of sophistication.
I am in the UK now. You know, I thought that was what the UK was about. You know, so aristocracy. There we go. Here we go. Right. Cheers.
Slange. Here's to your health. So, right, folks. This is Stephan Thiel, is that correct? Stephan Thiel?
That's right.
How I pronounce it? Stephan Thiel, who is the founder and CEO of Hex Innovate. They're the people behind things like the Hex eZcan. You might have seen my vid or two on the Hex eZcan. Initially, that was set up for the BMWs, wasn't it? For the CAN bus system, is that correct?
Absolutely. It started with the BMWs.
And then we'll get into this, but now it's available for a multitude of other sort of manufacturers.
Oh, absolutely, and growing. And we are in the process of, you know, swinging that over to what we call the eZcan Adventure, which is all kinds of 4x4s and, you know, Land Rover. You know, things like that. That's kind of where we're starting. So I'm really excited about that. And it just, you know, it's going from stride to stride.
So tell us a little bit about yourself then. I mean, like, how have you always been into bikes? How did you get into all the gadgetry that's led you down this path?
How did I get into bikes? Have I always been into bikes? Well, I was born in Namibia. And as a young boy, probably the age of 9, we moved to South Africa. My grandfather lived there, and he was very poorly. And we were living on what we deemed a small holding, give it, I don't know, 7, 8, maybe 9 hectares.
Yeah.
Planted a couple of things, had a couple of goats, a chicken coop and, 2 cows, that kind of thing. And we had an RV90. Well, should I say my dad had an RV90, those little fat cat Suzuki, with, it looks like a quad tires. And of course, what 10, 11-year-old boy can resist something like that? And obviously, after having lost copious amounts of blood and I almost said foreskin, I meant skin on the knees, and eventually my mum said, no, this is it. That's the end of it. You will never have a bike. Eventually, that became, you will never have a bike whilst you're under my roof.
Yeah.
And eventually that just became, oh, well, you're grown up now. And eventually I just sent her a picture many moons ago, probably must have been 98, 90, around there, 98, of a CB750. And she just said, as long as I can get a lift next time I'm down there. So by that time I was all grown up and out of varsity and started working, and it was sort of a pet project. A friend of mine donated the bike in 3 boxes, and it was my summer project, and duly crashed it on the first excursion out, trying to keep up with my mates who are good riders. That's when you very quickly learn that there's a lot to learn. It's not the same as a bicycle. But loved it ever since, and that became a GS 650, those little old thumpers. South Africa has a lot of dirt roads, and I quickly realized it's a lot more fun on the dirt roads. Purely, it takes you places that you otherwise wouldn't see, and believe it or not, it's a lot safer. And and it just grew from there. So one thing led to another, and been into biking and loved bikes ever since. And at the time, worked for a couple of other companies, and I started playing with VW's diagnostic systems. That's a really long story as well, but just purely out of boredom. I've always been into reverse engineering, figuring out how stuff worked. My dad always laughed at me. He's a very practical guy too. But I always took everything apart and tried to figure out, how to put it back together again, mostly unsuccessful, but that's how you learn. And at varsity, we did a couple of sort of odd projects on our own where we reverse engineered how certain things work that I'd rather not say on a stream that goes out to lots of people that can be held against me, but it was all in the name of figuring out how things work. And then that led to another, and we just started reverse engineering things. And eventually I had a friend who had a BMW 328, and he said, have you seen this tool? I know this guy, and you plug it into the diagnostic port and you can give the car a haircut. And I'm going, a haircut? What the hell does that mean? He goes, yeah, you can set the odo to whatever you like. I'm going, ooh, wow. That doesn't sound legal, but it sounds interesting, so what does that entail? So I read up about it, and most guys at the time, companies that offered something like that, they had to take the cluster apart, and you find the little memory chip on the back, and you would either desolder that memory chip and reprogram it, or you would eventually it evolve to a sort of a clamp that they put over there, and you could reprogram it. And these guys was an Eastern European company. They had this tool that could do something like that. And my friend was also an engineer, but he knew some interesting people, put it that way. And he said, well, this mate of mine, he's got one of these things, and he's coming down to ride the Argus, which is a huge international bicycle race in a cycle race in Cape Town. I'll ask him to bring one along. And as luck would have it, my friend had this BMW, and I said, well, I need a car, so can I borrow your car? He said, yeah, sure. So spent the week prior, slamming some electronics together, trying to figure out what I would need to log the data that goes to and fro. And sure enough, on the Friday, he brought the tool, and I plugged it into my mate's car, and sure enough, I could set it to anything. And I go, "Wow, this is kind of this is going to be interesting." And then logged all of the stuff and phoned him up on the Sunday and said, "Hey, you can come fetch your car." He says, "So how was it? Successful?" I said, "Well, put the tool aside and took my laptop and plugged it in and, gave it a whirl and said, oh, there we go. There was 990 odd thousand kilometers." He's like, "I hope to God you can set this back." I said, "Yeah, watch this." Back. Of course you go, "Ooh, this has money written all over it." And then, of course, being young and stupid, but at least a little bit on the thoughtful side, we had a look at what the legal aspects were thereof, and it wasn't
probably not.
Well, now it's illegal, but at the time, it's a tool that is used if you retrofit a second-hand Odo to a car, and you want to set it to the official mileage, and we looked at this thing and we just that this is not going to be used for that, and you kind of think, morally it's just wrong, and maybe something with how we grew up at that point in time, at least, thanks to my parents, there's a moral and ethical code that, I'm a big believer in, what goes around comes around. And, if I provide this, however cool it is and however exciting it was to reverse engineer, it's going to come back and bite me in the arse at some point in time. So took this and, packed it in the cupboard, and, that was it, and started working on a couple of other things. And that is kind of when the automotive, I've never been an automotive guy. I've, liked riding bikes. I'm not a petrol head in any way, shape or form. But then, the tech kind of melted or sort of, mingled with that. And I'm going, I wonder what else you can do in cars. And, that's how I looked at the diagnostic port, because that's where we plugged in for the previous thing. So, what do the dealers do? How do they diagnose these things? How do they read the fault codes? What else can they do? What can they set? And just sort of, learnt about that. And at the time, I finished my master's degree, and I was at the university seconded still to our electricity provider, and we finished the project that we worked on. And eventually they said, you have to join the real world now. So best, leave the university behind. You've got two months to finish up there, and then join us, at sort of corporate headquarters.
Yeah.
And I rocked up there, and they said, new engineer. Yeah, we have this engineering training program. So please go and see technical training. They sort of third building on the left. And so, okay. So there I sat, reported there. The secretary said, yep, the engineering, the head of technical training will be with you in a while. And at lunchtime, he came out and he said, I'll be with you right after lunch. And 5 o'clock, he said, first thing tomorrow morning, we'll sort you out. And, the next day was sort of the same thing. And I was getting bored as hell, and I'm thinking, what the hell? Yeah. And on the third day, we had this canteen where we have lunch, and I sort of looked at the other engineers and I said, so this is the situation. They go, oh yeah, that's typical. I'm like, okay, so where do engineers not want to go? And they said, the transformer workshop, is big, bulky, you can think sort of, big, transmission and distribution transformers, lots of oil, dirty, grease, engineers don't want to go there. So thanks very much. So I walked down after lunch and I went to the engineering workshop and I said, right, guys, I'm here. This is me. And they're like, who are you? I said, well, I'm the new engineer in training. They said, we generally don't get engineers down here. I said, well, they sent me down here. I don't know. What am I supposed to do here? They go, there's a little boardroom back there. And I don't know, just sit there, do some reading whilst we figure out what to do with it. I said, no, guys, I've done enough reading. I've been sitting the past 3 days, where do I get an overall and safety boots and a hard hat and gloves? And they're like, on whose account? And I've got technical training, of course. I said, yeah, come right along. Yeah. As long as it's on their account, everything is fine. And there I spent probably the better part of 6 weeks or something like that. And eventually I went, I think I understand a transformer now. And sorry, I'm going to fix this.
6 weeks and 6 weeks and nobody noticed.
Nobody noticed. Anyway, so I went back to training, and they like, I could see the frown on the manager's face, and he's like, I said, yeah, you sent me to transformer workshop. And he's like, Right. Well, I said, yeah, where do I go now? And he's like, okay, you'll go to protection. Sort of that's all the line fault protection and so forth. And by this time, you must remember, I've been having lunch with, a general populace in the canteen for 6 weeks, and I've gotten to know more people, and I know a lot of the protection guys and engineers, and I rock up there and I'm, hey, Herbie, I'm here. And they go, who sent you? I said, no, the engineering, the head of HR. She's like, we're on a project. We're leaving tomorrow. We're gone for 4 weeks. And, we don't have S&T for you. You've got no hotel booked. You've like, no. I tell you what, sit down there and, in 4 weeks' time, we're back and we'll see what we can do with you. So there I sat for 4 weeks. Of course, the second day after sitting there, I'm like, gosh, this is boring. So what do? You need a laptop, or you need internet access. So I went to IT and I said, I need internet access. Now, can you imagine? I mean, I wonder how many people are listening to this podcast going, you have to ask for internet access?
Yeah.
You just remember, this is sort of, we're talking late 90s here. Early, it wasn't, I think late 90s. And, part of my lunch extravaganza, got to know some IT people as well. And I'm like, hey guys, I need a PC. And sure, no problem. Come fetch one after lunch. So I got this, old, CRT monitors and CGA and VGA monitors, and put this whole thing together. And I'm like, but actually I need internet access. I'm like, ooh, yeah, your line manager has to sign for that. My line manager has gone on a project for 4 weeks. They're like, yeah, okay, use this login. So I'm like, thank you very much. And that's kind of, where I linked to the previous one, where I'm going, well, there I was sitting and I was going, so that's what we did in the diagnostic port. I wonder what else you can do. And then I started digging, and, at the time, I remember the search engine was still Dogpile, believe it or not, that we used at the time. Wow. And I came across OBD2, which is the onboard diagnostics that was mandated by the CARB, the California, emissions resource board. Right. And I found a lot of specs, and I thought this was just amazing. This is a unified, universal spec of how you talk to a car, a passenger vehicle, with a spec. And I, by hook or by crook, I found a copy of the spec, and, spent the next couple of weeks into implementing this, mostly at home, and, plugged it into every car I could find, and for the love of me, it just didn't want to respond. And I'm like scratching my head, and obviously got a bug in the software somewhere. And then I sort of, got a little wiser and figured out, but hang on a minute, this is 1998. And the California Air, the CARB, had only mandated this in 1996 in the US. It wasn't even mandated until I think 2000 and must have been 2 or 3 in Europe. So our vehicles coming from Europe just weren't OBD2 compliant. Oh crap! But now the bug's really bitten me, and I'm going, I wonder, so what do we have a lot of in this parking lot of all these engineers that I know? And there were a lot of Opels, and there were a lot of VWs. And sort of the Saturday morning, I walked down to one of the scrap yards, and I said, I'm looking for an engine ECU. Oh, son, what are you looking for? I need a VIN number on it. I said, no, I just want, I was like, no, you don't understand. I don't want to put it in any car. I literally want to put it on the bench, and I want to talk to it. He goes, you want to what? I said, yeah, I want to figure out how this works, and I want to talk to it. He says, in that case, I'll find you something. And he came and he says, this is a VW combi, the VW buses.
Yeah.
He says, here's a VW combi 2.3. Will that do? I said, yeah, sure. How much do I owe you? He said, boy, for somebody as nuts as you, it's for free. There you go. Cheers. And I walked up with this thing and, spent the next couple of days trying to figure out what goes where and how do I power it up and where do I talk to it and how do I talk to it? And then I started talking to it. And I got involved in reverse engineering the VW Audi protocol for diagnosis. Just shits and giggles. And by that time, you also remember my line manager. I was sitting there and I was all excited and figuring out what to do. And eventually stumbled across a project of an American doing a tool for VWs and Audis. And we sort of, were on the same forums, boards at the time as we used to refer to them. And at some point in time, somebody asked him why he encrypts certain files. And he said, well, he's aiming to make a commercial product. And besides, the guys at VW Audi that know how this works, and the previous guy that did a similar tool who passed away recently, which is why he sort of took the project on and was trying to build something for the enthusiast community. And some South African enthusiasts. Besides these couple of guys, I don't know of anybody that knows, how this protocol works, and that's why I encrypt some of these files. And I'm like, oh, the South African guy, that's me.
That's you.
So I sent him an email, and I said, hey, I've seen your stuff, awesome. The community needs this, and can I help in any way, shape, or form? And that's how we sort of got in contact, and we started manufacturing interfaces for them. Eventually, it turned out that they were so busy with the software and reversing the software. My suggestion to them was, you need an interface, because at the time, it was Windows 98, which was still okay. Then came Windows, what was ME or something like that before 2000. I can't even remember all of them. And they were just absolutely horrible at allowing you to do timing control over the serial port. And, I said, you need an interface. You want to talk asynchronously to an interface and then have this interface do the really hardcore timing to the vehicle diagnostic port and stuff like that. And he says, you want to do something like it? I said, well, I've basically got something like it. I'll give it to you. He said, I don't have the time. You do this for me. And that's sort of how our relationship started. And we have a phenomenal relationship up to today, and they probably they're a big portion of our business, and that was sort of the automotive side of things that started, and it just grew from strength to strength. And I remember sort of in the second year having this discussion with him, and going, so where do you think this is going to go? Because I was still working for another company. That was my sideline gig, and he's like, he doesn't know. He sort of looked at the numbers, and maybe we'll top out at 5,000 units, or that's pretty much how big I think the enthusiast community is. Well, I can tell you, we make runs of 5,000 or 10,000 now for the products, and we do those many times a year.
Wow.
And volumes are just growing, and it's phenomenal. And it was an amazing learning curve, because probably to this day, the most ethical businessman I have dealt with in many years. And it's just this phenomenal relationship. And I'm actually so blessed to have started a business relationship, or my business sort of life with somebody like that, not being screwed over several times and whacked over the head, and what life is like sometimes. And that just grew. At that time I was a product manager at a company, a software company, and they were in a bit of financial difficulty, and the whole middle management layer got retrenched. Oh crap! And that's kind of where I had to make the call. Do I send out my CV, or do I fall back on what we've been doing as a sideline gig and see where this can go?
For it. Yeah,
and absolutely, and that was the car side of things, and that makes you think, I need something else. I can't have, nobody has one leg to stand on. That's not healthy. So let's find another leg. And that's sort of when I approached a friend of mine who was also a very keen BMW motorcyclist at the time. And actually, the two of us had been planning for quite some time to go through Africa on our bikes. And we were like, I want to make a diagnostic tool for BMWs, because thinking about the trip, I wanted to get a tool and I can't find one. And for the life of me, there isn't one. And the experience we have, I'm sure we can do this. It's like, hang on a minute. So let's do a little bit of, market analysis and make sure that this is a really good idea. It's an idea that can fund itself and so forth. The usual stuff. I mean, we're super keen and enthusiastic, but we're not stupid. So the business basics have to make sense. And they just did, and we started the GS901 diagnostic tool for BMW motorcycles. And that's through that we got involved in a lot of sort of motorcycle stuff and even more. And the BMWs at the time, and arguably still today, are on the forefront of tech. And it is nice working on those bikes because they teach you a heck of a lot. It is a continuous revelation of how stuff works together, how, what they do with the new technology, how the next generation of stuff works, how it's integrated. And that was sort of how the second leg was born, which is the GS901. And the diagnostic tool for the BMW bikes. And then sort of the eZcan is a whole different story, how that got to be. So I don't know if you want to sort of, carry on this trend a little bit. Or
absolutely. I mean, it really sounds like it's a story of not blagging it, but going for it. Just going for it. You could have quite happily been the type of, like we call apprentice. You could have been the type of apprentice turning up there and just sitting around on the, and not doing anything and not making what they can from a situation. Whereas you're plainly the type of person that goes, nah, let's go for it. I want to learn. I want to get this from this opportunity, and just going for it. And it's led you down this path. It's incredible.
Absolutely. I mean, taking the first example of the American company is called, I'm sure they won't mind if I say it, but it's called Rostec. Mm-hmm. And I sort of looked at their product and I just, sent him a mail and I said, this phenomenal product. And that's how we got talking. And, if I'd never sent the mail and just, carried on playing on myself, that would have never gotten to anything. And that is, there's a lot of luck involved in life and business. And, as I said, I believe, what you sow is what you reap, and what what goes around comes around. But you can't sit in your arse and do nothing, then, you also get, what you're sowing. And, you've got to go for it. And, many a time people comment on the long hours that or most of us at the company work. And I go, don't work long hours. I play long hours, and that's important. And if you're that enthusiastic and that excited about the stuff that you do, fantastic. Then it's not an effort, and that's sort of what we look for in guys in our company. And when we try and recruit new guys, we're currently looking for a senior Java developer, and one of my requirements is he or she must fit into the company, but they must be passionate about what they do. Passion. Yep. Drives everything. If you just want to pay the bills or just want to be there, you need a place to spend 8 to 5. It's not the place for you. I'm really looking for somebody that's passionate about something, and that you get the most out of things. Those are the people that dig. They see something, but they go, I wonder where that path goes, and I wonder what that does, and and that's what you get from somebody like that. And it's a way of thinking, I guess. It's a type of person, but yeah, most enjoyable.
It really does make a difference having a passion for your, I'm going to say work, but when you love your passion. For me, finding this and having the opportunity now to do what I do full time, it's I put in hours that I've seldom put in any other job, but the difference being is that I love it. I genuinely enjoy what I do, and even though I get frustrated with computers when I'm editing and stuff, I still love it. I don't mind putting in the graft. And you're right, it does fuel it as well, doesn't it? Because you start, for me, in an editing world, I start thinking to myself, oh, I wonder how I could do that, and how can I do this transition, and how do I fix this little bit of audio here? So you start digging. For me, I go into YouTube and how do you take echo or excess reverb off audio? And, you can start really delving in there and learning new stuff, can't you? It must be hard, though, for you as an employer looking for an employee with those sort of credentials, characteristics. How do you find that?
Yeah. Effort, luck, putting the word out there, going through some people, trying a couple of things, and it's not perfect. Some work out, some don't.
Yeah.
But if you effectively look for that, then you get it right most of the time. But it's difficult, and it's even more difficult at this point in time. The sort of software arena has gone insane, especially here in the UK. As you know, I've only been in the UK for about 4 years. So a large portion of our company, the development office and some of the manufacturing and operations, or what we call ops, is still in South Africa. But slowly but surely, we're building the development side on this side as well. And trying to find people now is just insane. We hear all these stories of these big companies laying off 12% of their workforce, and thousands of people being retrenched sort of in the software sector. But you try and find somebody, it's like impossible. And the salaries that the guys are being offered now. I mean, we were, as I said, we're looking for a senior Java guy, and we had many sort of okay CVs, and we shortlisted 2 guys. Wanted to do an interview with the first, and it was just, sorry, he's taking another job. Started talking to the second guy. I sent him, we have these tests that we have the guys do. He did the test. He did really well. We said, right, we want an interview with you. He's like, I'm sorry, I just got this. I'm not going to mention any names, but a bank offered him twice the salary he had at the previous company. Now, if you give somebody a 10% raise, a 20% raise, but twice, then you know how tough the job market is at this point in time, but tough for the employers. It's insane. And we sort of look at each other and we're going, not quite sure where this is coming from. And, is this all sort of COVID driven still? Because I think COVID boosted, you don't quite see it yet, but COVID boosted a lot of small businesses. A lot of guys sort of went, bugger it, I'm doing my own thing, and there were a lot of startups, and I think you hear and see the big corporates. Those are the guys you hear. The guys are, if you look at a Gaussian distribution, if you have enough volume, you can have a Gaussian distribution. You pretty much know how the herd is going to react. So you look at these big, 3 to 30 billion turnover companies, and they know they're gonna fall onto hard times. I mean, that is just the statistical average and the distribution. And these guys are looking for turnover, and turnover they know is gonna take a knock, and they go, well, then we have to focus on profit. Well, how do they focus on profit? They cut costs. To me, that's a very short-sighted view. But, these big corporates don't work for, in 10 years' time or in 20 years' time. They focus on what makes
the next quarter happy. And
exactly, totally. And I think that's what we're seeing at this point in time, whereas the smaller companies are going, having come through COVID, having survived COVID, it makes me think of that T-shirt that says "I survived COVID."
Absolutely.
That's changed the attitude, I think, of a lot of people to become go-getters and do stuff, and that's what I'm thinking, and I think that's kind of the demand we're seeing on the smaller side of things, medium-sized companies, small to medium-sized companies. But yeah, it's an insane world of the past couple of years. If you think of the past 3 years,
it's crazy, isn't it? To think what we've all gone through. It's almost like you write off the 2020, 2021, certainly. You almost write them off because it was almost like a non-event, wasn't it, for most folk? And it's interesting what you said there about, there's an increase in small companies. Well, thinking about it, I am one of them, although I'd made my plan to resign from the old bill and start doing this full time before COVID arrived. I basically became self-employed that first month of COVID here in the UK. And you do have that feeling that I survived it, so it can't really get much worse than the last couple of years. So let's just go for it. And I notice it now this year where I have a full year of tours all planned. And the second I publish my tours out into the ether on the internet, I did think to myself, God, I've gone from having 1 or 2 tours to all of a sudden I have 6 or 7 out there. And I thought to myself, am I going to fill these places? But they went almost instantly, nearly 80 places just went. And talking to people, everyone is of the same mentality of, live my mantra, live your life. They're all like, we've been through hell the last 2 weeks, so you don't know what's around the corner. So let's just go and do it. And it's great. But I do, in the back of my mind, I think, okay, but surely at some point people have to start going, okay, enough living for the now. We need to start working for tomorrow. It's getting that happy balance, isn't it? Live for today, plan for tomorrow. Sorry to interrupt, folks. I will be quick. It is sponsor shout-out time. We are sponsored, as always, by Ultimate Add-ons. Bit of a blurb to read out for them. Ultimate Add-ons are the premium manufacturer of mobile phone and action camera mounting solutions for motorcycles, with a kit for any bike and a proven track record of creating products that keep your devices safe, secure, and easily accessible. The Ultimate Add-ons product range is ideal for any rider, from the commuter to the round-the-world adventurer. Why shell out on an expensive GPS system when you could use your smartphone, keeping it charged and within easy reach to take photos of your travels at the same time? Ultimate Add-ons waterproof, shockproof, and dustproof tough cases are available for all flagship smartphone models and are designed by riders for riders. Find out why Ride Magazine gives Ultimate Add-ons their coveted Best Buy certification. Keep riding this winter with Ultimate Add-ons. It's all about the journey. Now, folks, if you head to ultimateaddons.com and use the code TeapotOne10, you'll get 10% off. I've got an affiliate link for them as well, which I'll leave down below. So if you listen to the podcast, check out the show notes. If you're watching the vid, have a look at the vid description. And obviously with the affiliate, I also make a slight commission off that. Costs you nothing more. So a massive thanks to Ultimate Add-ons. We are also sponsored by, as always, the Influencer Store. Influencer Store handle all my merch. You can see up there, I've got loads of hats, there's hoodies, there's all sorts of things. So if you head to TeapotOne.com, head to the shop, you can check out all the merchandise, and that is all handled by the folks over at the Influencer Store. The Influencer Store helps you build your brand, big or small, providing you with a solution and apparel. We help you to increase your fan base while supporting you with starting your own influencer clothing line with nothing more than just an idea or design, and there are no hidden costs. For more info, come check us out at theinfluencerstore.co.uk or drop us an email at online@influencerstore.co.uk for more information. Again, there'll be links down below, folks. Lastly, a big shout out to all of you over in the clan, over on Patreon. As always, folks, I keep saying this, but it is true. I literally could not do this full time without your support over there. So a huge, heartfelt thank you from me. If you'd like to go that extra mile and help support both the podcast and the main TeapotOne vid channel, then head to patreon.com/TeapotOne. Again, links down below. A massive thanks to each and every one of you who's listening or watching the podcast. I love doing the podcast. I really do. And I love getting all the feedback from you, from all the various different guests that we've had. If you could be so kind, on whatever platform it is that you're listening or watching the podcast, if you're listening on Apple Podcast or Spotify in particular, you can rate the podcast on there. Obviously, a 5-star rating goes a long way to help boost the podcast up through the ranks. And if you're watching the video, just give it a like, give it a comment, and both video and audio, if you share that with everyone that you think might be interested, that would be a massive help. All right, folks, let's get back to it.
Absolutely. But I think the psyche of a lot of people changed. It's not just, there were a lot of people where it was opportunistic of, getting free money, just looking at the money printers going crazy, and, living for the moment. But it also changed the way people think. People are going, hell, I don't know what's happening next year, but I'm going to do this. And, I have no plan of, how I'm going to survive next year or the year thereafter, pardon me. But, I'll be damned if I won't try. So, I'm going to try. It makes me think of that. The other day I was Insta, I saw these motivational posters, and there's this face of this sort of really angry lion, and at the top it says, I can't remember the whole thing, but the bottom line is pretty much, beware of the devil. And at the bottom the caption says, I don't worry about that. I am the devil, but that's kind of the, people have, they try and instill these fears, and you just go, screw that, I'll show you. And in a sense, that's what I like, of at least the positive that came out of COVID. Yeah, sure, a lot of people are kind of just stumbling forward and, hoping things will work out, and it doesn't always. But if you have a, inkling of, what you're doing, or, just doing something sensible, there's a lot to be done, so much so, I mean, we've been filled, our lives, we've been sort of, told and taught to, be afraid of change and, fear change and, chase stability. And you look at, what happened through COVID, and, we didn't know whether there was going to be a Christmas, and I think that really, changed the outlook for a lot of people.
Yeah, definitely.
And I think that's what we're seeing now.
Yeah, absolutely. It's changed people's priorities, hasn't it? And what you said there about mindset and stuff, about, different people's different attitudes, I think is totally right. Everyone goes on about PMA, positive mental attitude, and, I used to think it's just a happy clapper brigade, but I think it's absolutely true. If you try to have a positive mindset towards whatever it is that you're doing in life, whether it's starting a business, whether it's, trying to lose weight, whatever it is, you have to try and just keep a positive spin on it and just constantly working on whatever your goal is. Because the second you give up, it is up then, isn't it? Like, you're never going to achieve it if you just give up.
Consistency.
You have consistent, totally. You have to keep going. And I've said this umpteen times about, what I'll mention it now. People have probably got a book as to how long it will be before I mention the world trip. But the world trip really did teach me that if you have a plan, well, the plan's never, ever, ever it's never gonna stick to the plan. You have to be fluid with your plans, don't you? So if you want to get to point C from point A, well, you're not necessarily going to have to go through point B. Sometimes you have to go through F and Y and Z and O and then back to A again. And shit happens, absolutely. But you just have to keep constantly reevaluating your plan and figuring out how you can keep focusing on that goal. How are you going to attain that goal? And it'll happen.
I tell my team so many a time, no is not the answer.
Yeah.
And that's what you were saying now. I mean, if you get to a border post and the border post is closed, you don't go, damn, that's the end of my trip. Oh, that's so sorry. No, you find another border post. That's like, where do I go from here? Whether it's your border post, whether it's a visa, whether it's a broken down vehicle, how do I get this
figure it out? Yep.
So yeah, I wish, we were right in the beginning. Coming back to that, we were saying sort of finding, and you have found what you love and what you love doing. After how many years? I mean, you don't look a day over 25, maybe, but some of us take a little longer. But I look at my kids and I'm going, the schooling system is so, I don't want to say one-track minded, but, they've got this very rigid idea of what you have to do and, get them through, and eventually, there they go. I suspect we would do a lot better if we figured out what their passion or love was earlier on in life, and sort of, enabling them in that. And that's sort of something that my wife and myself are trying to figure out. And my kids are still young. I mean, they're still, but even now I can see, the one is mathematically very capable. And the other one is artistic as hell, and two very different kids. And you think to yourself, they're going through the same schooling system, and how could one change that? Change, but how can you enable them to be a better person and to grow in what they're good at and what they like and what they're passionate about? Ultimately, once you get on in life, you kind of realize how short it is. And, it's important finding your passion and, firstly doing something that makes you happy, and then, helping others find what makes them happy. So yeah, that's an interesting thing. So when's your next world trip? Come on, I mean it must be. I mean, as we get on, it gets more difficult, doesn't it? But at least you're doing trips.
Yeah, I mean, I was always asked when I finished the big one, people were saying, "Oh, so would you do it again?" And I've got to admit, for the first couple of years, I always said no, because I've done it. I've got nothing left to prove to myself, and I've done it. So there was no desire there anymore to go and do it. And like that desire is definitely back, but I'm in a different situation in life. I'm married, I've settled down, we've got a home. We don't have family, sadly, but we've got the dog and the cats, and I've got my sort of little world now all developed. And I don't think it would be fair for me to just bugger off again for, a year and a half. Of course, I could work remotely, but B, most importantly, I don't actually want to be away for that sort of length of time anymore. So doing my own trips now, you're talking about a week generally most of the time. So I'm away for about a week a month during the middle part of the year, where I go away and I do my tours, which help pay the bills. And every now and then the odd little opportunity throws itself. So I'm off to Morocco in July for nearly 3 weeks. So I'm really looking forward to doing something like that. Excuse me. Potentially, I'm working on an India trip as well. A couple of others have started to appear on the horizon to go further afield, but they'll be in a year or two's time. So yeah, rather than just disappearing for big chunks, I'm probably going to go down the line of, they'll be more condensed in time, probably no more than 3 or 4 weeks.
Yeah. How long was your world trip?
A year and a half, 442 days, I think it was.
Okay, a little more than Phileas Fogg. 80 days is a challenge. But I have a bane in going to visit a country, spending 5 days in a hotel and ticking it off my list. And that's what I like about what you're saying. I mean, we've got to adapt to where we are in life. And, taking a week, taking 2 weeks and exploring a certain area, just, that is, I think, where we are at this point in time.
Yeah.
I mean, me too. I literally, sometimes trips take me away from home for 3 weeks, and I don't know, it's tough on my wife and the kids. But anything longer than that would be tough. But not just on the family. If you think about how many things you've missed and things you would have wanted to explore along the way. I mean, I'm just thinking Simon and Lisa. They've been around the world as well. It's just taking them a little longer. What are they now? 18 years or
18
something
years.
like that?
Yeah.
It's insane. But they still have a list this long of countries that they still need to visit and explore. And you don't get to know the people by just flying in and flying out. That's, I guess, the one thing that's really nice about biking. You're exposed to the elements, and you're more exposed as a person, and that makes you more exposed to the people. I don't know if you find that too, but people open up to you as a biker, as opposed to, I guess, if you would do your tour with 13 other people in 4x4s, you would be a lot more secluded from the environment and the people and so forth, except for where you stop and what you do. And that's the nice thing about motorbikes. It's not just about the two wheels and the, my beard isn't as long as yours, but the wind in your beard. And, there's the people aspect. I mean, to me, the people aspect is really the nice thing. I mean, the views are great, and, there's so much that this world has to offer. But I kind of like the whole people aspect of it. And
me too. That's one of the biggest aspects of that world travel. Was meeting the people. Totally. And you're right, motorbikes, I think motorbikes have this common almost mystical aspect to them. Like, wherever you go in the world, everyone knows what a motorbike is, especially if you turn up on a big motorbike. And for me, like I did it on the GSX-R 1000, a sports looking motorbike. So even where I went, if I went to places where they were used to the big GSs and the big adventure bikes coming through, they've only ever really seen one of the race bikes on the TV, So everywhere I went, I would just get people going, Valentino Rossi, as soon as they saw the bike. I remember being up in
a little smaller than you are, I presume.
Yeah, just a smidgen. Well, he's quite a tall guy, but obviously he's not 20 odd stone. So, but I remember being up in the Ho Chi Minh Trail in Laos, literally on no road. It was a mistake on my part. I ended up in the mountains on this track, and I remember coming through this little village. And everyone was out and they pointed at the bike and they were like, Valentino Rossi. They all knew Rossi, even though out there, And I loved that. And you're right, the bike, you're open to the elements. So you feel the weather around about you if it's hot and it's humid or if it's cold and it's wet. You smell everything. Yeah, totally. You experience every country that you're going through. It's got to be the best way to do it.
I have a couple of trips that we've done. So when we got married, we did sort of the whole island thing and so forth. But then we had a week left, and I convinced my wife we'd go on a bit of a 4x4 road trip kind of thing, and we did. Can't remember how many. 1,500, maybe 2,000 kilometers or something like that in that week, which is not a lot. You can do that in a day, but we did maybe 300 kilometers on tar, and the rest was dirt road, just because those are the roads less traveled. And Absolutely. I remember at one point riding and winding the window down. She's like, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, "Smell." It was this. Pasture of flowers, and I remembered from being on a bike that it had this amazing smell. But you're in the car and you've got the aircon on, and life's good. It's 35, 38 degrees outside. You don't want to open the windows, but I'm very triggered by smell in terms of memories and stuff like that. And I saw the pasture and I'm like, smell, and that's one of the things I love on a bike. Anyways, I'm getting sidetracked a little bit. I was thinking now, you kind of made me think of the big bikes and people recognizing it. On the wee little trip that we did, we got to the first petrol station in Zambia, and we pulled in, and I was on those initial. Those firstly released 800s, the yellow ones, and my mate was on a 1200 adventure. And as we pulled in, and we also had this sort of crowd. Oh, sir, I like your bike. I like your Honda. Oh, you've got such a beautiful Honda. And I'm like, no, it's a BMW. He goes, yeah, your BMW Honda. And I'm like, no, it's a BMW. Yes, your BMW Honda. And only sort of on the second day, we stayed at this sort of campgrounds with a lodge, and I asked the guy about this. He goes, one of the first bikes that were imported into Zambia were Hondas. So to them, a Honda is a motorcycle. So that is their name for a motorcycle, is a Honda.
Is a Honda. So,
exactly. So you've got a beautiful Honda BMW, and I'm like, okay. But anyway, this is just it does capture their imagination as well. You can really see. Anyway, it just makes sort of for a fun time in life, I guess. So
absolutely. Whereabouts in Africa have you travelled in? Have you ridden?
Way too little. But sort of I went with Kubus, my good mate that started GS #1 with me, and we're both originally from Namibia. So my dad now lives in South Africa, pardon me. But my mum my mum and brother live in Namibia, and his parents live in Windhoek, the capital of Namibia as well. So we went up into Windhoek, we spent a night with them, and then we went into Botswana and, sort of up into the Delta, through the Delta into the Caprivi again. And then we sort of made our way at the time, Central and Western Africa. It's a bit dodgy, especially, Central. I mean, the whole thing with Africa is, tomorrow is not like yesterday.
Absolutely, yes. Very volatile, isn't it?
Totally. But the east of Africa is, generally speaking, tourist heaven. It is so easy. If I have to tell somebody how little we planned and what we had with us, and our whole thing was we only had 2 months, and we had all kinds of responsibilities, and we wanted to go as light as possible. So the whole thing was, traveling light. But we did this sort of the eastern part right around Lake Victoria, and then sort of, down again. And when we got north of Malawi, we had to kind of decide. It's literally, we looked at maps and obviously did a lot of, beer sessions prior to the trip. But you can either take this road or that road or this road or that one kind of thing. And we got to the north of Malawi after having a phenomenal time in Malawi. And we was like, yeah. To the left, I mean, everybody goes right and sort of towards the sea. Let's go left. So then we can do Lake Tanganyika, and we can do Burundi and Rwanda, and go through Uganda and those kind of places. Yeah. And I mean, what we remember, and so referencing a map, paper maps. People don't know what those are these days. Referencing a map and going, yeah, that's the B. I can't remember, it was B5 or the B6. Let's assume it's the B5, the B5 highway. Sure. Let's take the B5 highway. And I remember, a couple of days that we kind of stopped there and, we look at each other and we look at our little Garmin GPSs and going, well, the GPS says this is the only road, but this sure isn't the highway. And, there were places that had steps, this high, obviously later you realize and you hear from the locals that there's the section between the two villages. It's about a 80 to 100 kilometer stretch that, the B5 goes this way and the B5 comes that way. But that section, hardly anyone ever travels. Yeah. We can tell you why, but that's what makes it fun. And that's what you kind of remember. Anyway,
they're the best that make it the adventure, aren't they?
Totally. Sleep in mud huts and little villages and fill your tank up with, bottles not too dissimilar of something looking like this. And the funny thing is you have this little tin shack and it's got 50 bottles, and you look at them like that and they are all a different shade of some color, and you're going, I need about 5 or 6 of them, which ones am I going to pick? Is what it is, and it's fun, and we had hardly any problems, and it is really an easy trip. I mean, the east of Africa is really easy. It's tourist heaven. It's we were remote a lot of the time, but we were never in danger. And I remember, you ride for 5 hours, you do not see a soul. And we used to make, especially when the roads get really bad, we kind of, made this conscious effort that we'd stop every hour just for 10 minutes or so to give the shocks a rest, because we'd seen and heard of too many people, blowing shocks, and literally you wet your finger and you put it on the shock and it would sizzle because, the potholes and the corrugation and stuff like. And you must remember, we were light. Now you can imagine these people, I've seen some video sort of stories that people did where there was a trip. I can't remember. I'll see if I can find that. But there was a bunch, I think it was sort of 5, 6, 1200s that did a trip, I think Cape Town to London or something like that. And they got to Nairobi and they unpacked luggage. And it must have been, from my recollection now, but it must have been 5 or 6 meters by 6 meters of luggage that they unpacked between these 5 bikes, and they kind of went, ship this back. We don't need this. And you don't. And anyway, what I was saying is, so, you'd be remote, but you would just stop. And 5 minutes later, somebody on a bicycle is coming by and super friendly, and they'd stop and they go, you're right. And you're going, you can't, it's difficult to explain to say, I'm resting the shock. So, just resting the arse a little bit. They laugh and off they go. And it's wherever we stopped, we hardly ever stopped that there wasn't somebody around. It might look super remote, but there's always somebody, and people are friendly. Inherently, people are friendly and people want to help. And, I guess depends where in the world you are. I mean, we can think of enough examples where that isn't true, but in the majority, and, it's just, it's easy. Anyway, so we went around Lake Victoria and then wanted to make our way that northern part of Mozambique from Tanzania. There's the northern part, which is super remote. Very few people, not even overlanders, go there because there aren't any roads inherently, or there weren't at the time. There was a bridge that was unveiled, I think, a year and a half or 2 years prior. Literally, the bridge was unveiled by both countries, Mozambique and Tanzania. And there's a dirt road that runs from Tanzania, and the road in Mozambique was still going to be built. But gives you an idea where that is. And we were dead set on doing that. And on the last night before having to turn down that road, it started raining. And we didn't have much of a say in when we went, which was, I think, April, May, something like that, and it just started to turn into the rainy season, and and it rained and it rained and it rained, and we woke up the next morning and we still weren't sure, are we going there or are we going there? And we said, okay, now a breakfast will solve this, and we had a good breakfast, and eventually we loved Lake Malawi, the side, so much that we can't find any good information on what lay ahead. So not that we were depending on information, but so many guys were warning us not to go. And we're like, okay. So, we loved Lake Malawi so much. We'll gladly go down that route again. And under Malawi, we'll cut into Mozambique. And then you get to... you cut through Tet, and then you get to Vilanculo, and then you kind of find your way down there. And we did that. And the first night, we were still in Tanzania. The next night before we hit to Malawi, we were sitting having. The food is something else to talk about. But we were watching the news. And they were sending bulldozers down to pull the buses out of the mud on the road that we would have gone down.
Oh, wow.
These guys had been stuck for the past 24 hours, and it's literally, you can't get cars through there, you can't get 4x4s through there. They were sending the bulldozers down, but unfortunately the bulldozers would take another day to get there, because they're not the fastest thing around. And we're like, okay. So I never made the top section of Mozambique, but so be it. It's one of those things. And then we sort of cut into Mozambique, and we did the whole Mozambican coast. And then you're closer to the end, and you realize, a bit of a back of a napkin, bit of maths, and we have some time to spare. So we spent some lazy days in Mozambique, a couple of, I think 5 days sort of just on the beach in Mozambique, and taking the dhows out to the, nearby islands, and fishing and snorkeling, and just, life.
Sounds mega. Yeah. Tough life.
Totally.
Yeah, Africa's definitely on my list. I sort of I was coming down the west, and I let Mauritania beat me, to be perfectly honest. And it's irked me ever since. I want to go back and sort of complete my sort of trip right round Africa. I'll do it one day. I will do it one day. Right, Stephan, we have a load of questions to work through, so I reckon we should start ticking them off.
Sorry, you're breaking up. I've got to go. No, sorry, it was nice.
I've had a little look. Everyone's been very kind. Don't worry.
Excellent.
Right, so we'll start with the ones over in the clan on Patreon. So it's patreon.com/TeapotOne. I nearly forgot. First one, Martin Yoxel. Hi, Stephan. It was good to see you at the bike show at Excel. Stephan, Martin was the chap that was standing with me at the Excel bike show when we had a little chat. I hope you're feeling relaxed now the podcast is here. Question. You have an unexpected week off. What would be your ideal trip? It doesn't have to be solo. So where would you go with a week?
What 1 week doesn't take me far, and I've got to decide, is it with the family or without the family? So, if it was in school time, it would be solo. So let's make that assumption, Okay. So next week, by hook or by crook, I've got next week off. If I don't have a lot of time to plan, it would most likely be on a motorcycle. And the weather is a bit crap at this point in time, to be honest. Coming from South Africa, I used to be a good weather biker. But I'd probably just, go exploring in the UK more. There's so much I need to do. I mean, I'm digressing a little bit, but still being on South African passports, we need Schengen visas to get into Europe, which I have, but my family doesn't. And to get them is insanely difficult at this point in time. It's been since COVID. Yeah, it's been crazy. I mean, last year, round about May, the first appointments you could find for a Schengen visa were in the end of August. And you're going, hang on a minute, by that time, September, the kids go back to school again.
Yeah.
So, that's always, so we've been so slowly but surely with the family as well. I mean, we, half term that was just past, we, did some exploring in Cornwall again. And, being new in the UK, there's so much to explore. I mean, I know everybody, jumps into Europe, and I would most likely love my wife. I mean, if they could come along, she would say sun. I mean, anywhere where there's sun, it's like at least we live sort of south in the UK. But if it's me alone, definitely on a bike, and I would probably sort of head. I haven't done the southern tip of the southern part of Wales, so I've sort of went to Nick's place, Nick Sanders and Simon and Lisa and them in sort of Snowdonia, but I sort of cut through the middle and sort of explored a couple of different routes there and a couple of different routes back. But the southern part I haven't done. So the southern part of Wales. There we go. Okay. That's the long answer.
Have you done the Brecons yet? The Brecon Beacons? That's down towards the south. No. Yeah. Awesome. Yeah, there's some great riding in Wales. I'm off there end of this month, actually, for the weekend, doing a bit of camping. Yeah, it's great. Yeah, I think you're right. There's so many opportunities, so many great places to go and ride and see right here in the UK that, again, I think COVID's probably helped UK tourism exponentially better than anything else possibly could, because all of a sudden because we couldn't travel, everyone was stuck and they could only explore the UK. So people did.
But I can tell you, prices have also gone up exponentially.
Oh yeah.
So, I have to really, really work with my wife to find us a place to go away in the UK, because she knows what she paid prior to COVID. Yeah. In finding us a sort of a little B&B or something like it, wherever we were. And but that's all over the world. I mean, that's part and parcel, and absolutely deal with it.
Yeah, you're right. I think Martin was saying that question was to both of us. I think for me, I quite like to do a little fly ride. I quite like doing the fly ride type holidays. My wife and I were doing it. We were flying across to the States and then just hiring a truck, and we'd go on a road trip for like 10 days in a different part of the States. Just no plan, just exploring. No highways, no freeway, nothing like that. All the back roads, and just explore the real country. So I really enjoyed doing that, and I'd like to do something similar on a bike. I'd love to explore more of the States, definitely.
I must say, I've been super blessed with that. I mean, I lived sort of on and off in the States on the California side for 5 years, and so did a lot of exploring with a bike on that side. But this chap I was telling you, the company Rostec, but the owner, Uwe, he's a keen biker, was a keen biker until his back started acting up. And in 2007, I think, he kind of said, hey, we're doing a trip down the Appalachians. You want to join us? And I'm like, yeah, wow. Hell yeah. And it was him and one of his software guys, and he had two bikes. So he's like, hey, you can have one of my bikes, and all you need is some gear, and off we go. And we spent a couple of days, I can't remember how many days, going all the way down there in Pennsylvania, so all the way down the down the Appalachians, and then eventually did Tail of the Dragon and the Cherola Skyway, and turned around in Helen, Georgia, and then sort of made our way on the western side of the Appalachians back again. And as I said, immensely blessed to have seen a huge part of the States.
Yeah, I really loved that area. Yeah, I loved like North, South Carolina, Georgia, all around there, all around that sort of part of the States. I loved it. I loved the South. I really felt like I had an affinity there. I don't know if I must be a Heck down my ancestry, but I really enjoyed it. Loved it. Right, cheers for that, Martin. Oh, sorry, go on. Apologies.
No, all good. No. Next time, volume 2.
Right, yeah. Brian McManus, hello, one and all. Hope all is well in your worlds. All good, thank you, Brian. Same to you. Question 1. Having 50% share in a GS 911 for years now, and it has saved me and my mate thousands of pounds, and I've got to know my bike inside and out. Where did it all start? How do you reverse engineer something like that? Please keep it simple, as I get confused easily. It's a quality bit of kit. Yeah, so with the GS 911 in particular, I mean, how do you reverse engineer something like that?
Remember, I think I sort of touched on the fact that we did some impromptu reverse engineering at Varsity already. You kind of figure out how stuff works. Some interesting things. And when this came along, remember, I had been playing with the VW side of things, and there are certain techniques. There are black box techniques that you use, and then you kind of look at the data that comes by. And I must say, we had a couple of very generous dealers. And those guys kind of said, hey, why are you guys doing this? And remember, but at that time, we had been on trips with these guys, and they sort of, know us, and they know we're not trying to take them for a ride. And they were like, why are you doing this? And we said, well, we're going on this Africa trip, and we want to figure out we need a tool like this. And then, what we kind of got them to do is allow us time with our bikes. Obviously, we can use any of these or customer bikes or something like that. And plugging their tool into it and seeing what it does. And that was sort of the basics. You, having had the experience of VW prior to that, and the OBD2 stuff that I did, it's very different but similar. And then you literally sort of figure out what's going on, and you literally know the protocol, and you can kind of see this is how things work, and that's what they do. And you try certain things, and you log stuff, and you do all kinds of weird and wonderful things, and figure out how it works. It's reverse engineering, so it's black box. You kind of look what comes in, and you look what goes out, and you figure out the bits in between.
Try and figure out the formula that generates it. Yeah,
correct. Yeah.
God, wow. What's the second question? He says, has Bruce said he's been around the world? Yes, I have. You're about half an hour, 40 minutes too late there. Now, Stephan, GS 911. I have been given a GS 911, but I did say to the folks, the in-off PR team, I was like, I don't know how I would use this, because I don't do servicing on my own bikes. Like, my bikes are all probably, like, I would think at least half of the people listening on this podcast, my bikes are bought through finance. So I just get them serviced by a local dealership, BMW dealership. How would I, as that type of customer, how would I use the GS 911?
So that's how the GS 911, I have to pause here. So there's a little term called trademarking and trademark infringement. So I'm, as I've done so many a time on today's podcasts, I digress a little bit. But imagine you're busy with this, and as I explained to you, you have got all the passion in the world, and you want to, figure stuff out and change the world, and you get this letter from a small corporate called Porsche.de, and they would love to have a discussion with you about their trademark and your possible infringement of it. I'm like, okay, let's, these things, from what I've heard, never turn out well. Yeah. I mean, these guys tend to bully you from top to bottom. I say these guys, I'm talking the big corporates, okay? Yeah. And I just recently, last week, I had a discussion with the guy who had, who has been having a rough time. And you listen to that and you just go, really, it irks me. Anyway, these guys were phenomenal. They sort of said, guys, we can see 911. We can see how you associate that with emergency. And we can see what you're doing. That is no area that we play in, and it's not an area that we have a class, that we have a trademark on. But we would respectfully ask that you refrain from using 911
Okay,
and
gotcha.
refer to it as 911. And we said, gladly. And they shook our hands and,
Wow.
that was it, figuratively. It took a couple of letters and things like that. But anyway, so that is, kudos to Porsche, hats off. Thank you. Anyway,
So the GS 911.
As you can tell, GS 911, emergency tool for GSs. Because let's face it, GSs go places, sort of off the beaten track. All the other road bikes just drive from dealership to dealership. I'm saying that tongue in cheek. That was my thinking at the time. Yep. Nobody would ever use this except the GS owner. So this was absolutely only an emergency tool for GS motorcycles. And that kind of links nicely to what you've been saying now. So why would you have this? A, to scan your bike before you go on a trip. To B, if you're on a trip and something happens and you go, crap, well, why have I got this yellow triangle now? Or what happened? Or somebody took a spill and suddenly they can't get this thing started. Where do you start looking? You haul out your GS 911, you plug it in and you see, what you can do. That's what it was meant. That was the original intent of a GS 911. It isn't and wasn't intended for people to service their bikes or to do absolute super duper maintenance. That evolved in that. I mean, we've been benchmarking ourselves against the competition, over the years, other products have evolved in the market. And we've recently, sort of end of last year, we've done a benchmark. And I am no longer heading up GS 911. Pete is the product owner of GS 911. And I don't want to say I've lost touch. I use it a heck of a lot on my bike and, all kinds of things. I test things when the guys release stuff. But you lose track of where you are compared to what the OE does and what the what the other competitors do. And I can tell you, we hit the other competitors, we knock it out of the park in terms of functionality. But that functionality is very much in the nitty-gritty detail, of stuff that a lot of guys won't use. And, that's fine because, our mantra and mission statement on that product is to give the BMW owner the absolute best tool that is, pretty much as capable as the dealer's tool. But it doesn't mean that's what you have to use it for. A lot of guys literally just carry it as an insurance policy. I mean, the off-road riding that we do or the off-piste riding that we do, something happens, as I said, somebody takes a spill and you take out your GS 911 and the GS 911 works on any BMW and you don't have to go, I only have the enthusiast version. I can't, don't want to plug it into your bike. You can read fault codes, do auto scans, read real-time values on as many bikes as you want, a gazillion and one. And the typical thing is you plug it in, you read the fault codes. The first thing you do is an auto scan. You don't even have to pick a bike. It does it for you. And it gives you a whole report of every control unit and any fault codes on there. And then you can go and do look at the real-time values. The typical stuff we found riding, a bit remotely in South Africa, when guys do take a spill, something happens but you don't know what the issue is. We've had the weirdest things. So what we would do, we'd sort of go do an auto scan, look at the fault codes, either see a fault code or don't see a fault code. Then we look at the real-time values, typically only on the engines, because, if your instrument cluster is broken off and it's lying back there, the bike will still ride. And believe it or not, but BMW has put a lot of thought into that. So, everything around your engine and engine controller is kind of what you're interested in to get you to wherever you want to go. And you kind of play, you look at those, you literally just go real-time values, select all of them, and you sort of, pull the clutch in, and I can see activated, not activated. Oh, great. So we've had probably, I can think of two where you see that the kill switch is activated, and your kill switch is activated, but it's in the run position. And you're like, kill, run. Nope, it's in, whack it a little bit,
Stone technical
took a spill and he's got some sand stuck, some grit, stuck in the kill switch, and kill, run. Awesome, off you go. That's what it's intended for.
Okay.
So, it does as good a job, if not better, of getting you out of tough situations as it does servicing and maintaining a bike.
So it takes most of the guesswork out of problem detecting detection and problem solving. It'll isolate where the problem is, and then you can direct all your efforts to that specific problem. Gotcha.
Gone were the days of carburetors where people used, spanner and a hammer and that was it. In early days of GS911, we kind of jokingly referred to that we had to educate the people, because people would plug stuff into their cars without thinking. And no problem with that. And you come up with, and you go, there you go. Ooh, can I plug that into my bike? And you go, why not? Yeah, but what would it do? Won't it break anything? And you kind of have to start that, but it's a car on two wheels. Once you start there, and you've got to educate them, and you take it from there. And it literally, we sort of our first probably 2, 3, 4 years was spent telling people, educate yourself to understand what's going on in your motorcycle. The ins and outs, look at the values, ask what they mean, figure out, look at them, log them. You can log them, on these guys, they've got a little SD card inside, and you can log them and graph them, and you don't have to, but there are people that want to, and it's there. It's you can now understand it. I tell you, having something like this is sort of the eyes into the windows of what's happening inside, which you wouldn't have without it.
I definitely have to have a little play. It's sort of, it's ignorance and nervousness on my part of just thinking I haven't got a clue. I've got no idea how to use this, and I don't know what to do with the information it's going to give to me, or it could possibly give me. It's just making me go, oh, well, there's no point in me attempting it because I won't know what it's doing. But I can, having had a wee chat with you there, especially after what we've just gone through in the last trip, where there were a number of BMWs, one of the guys, RS actually, when it fell in the snow, it activated the SOS function, which then meant he had the bigger SOS display on his main display, and he couldn't get that. He couldn't remove that at all. And even on a phone call back to the dealership, nobody could figure out how to get rid of this thing on the display. They tried everything that they had. And I was thinking to myself, now would probably be a good time to have one of those GS911 things.
Exactly. You kind of make me wonder what would happen, and you sort of make me think of, I don't know, you mentioned that you still want to do Africa. There's a company called Tracks for Africa. They literally, do you know them?
Yes, I use some of their maps, their GPX files for my navigation.
That literally started with a guy on a motorcycle exchanging GPX maps with overlanders, and that evolved into a company and a business and so forth. And the owner, the original founder, Voter, super interesting guy, and he gets lost many a time, and his kids are all grown up, and his wife knows him that way, and he'd sort of 5 weeks later phone home and say, honey, I've had enough. I'm turning around now. I'm coming home. And then, it's straightest road down, and he comes. But the story I wanted to tell you was he is a legend. He bought a 800 GS just after sort of I got mine around there, and we got talking. Their office was actually right next to our office, and he bought this 800. And as the BMW guys do, you get to the dealership and they have this beautiful thing presented on the center stand, and they give you the run through, and everything's there, and tell you, is there anything you don't know? Explain all kinds of things, and then off the center stand, and take it out. And he's like, look, I've got this, guys. It's not my first bike. And he takes the thing off the center stand and he pushes it out into the parking lot, which is asphalt. And he literally takes it sort of by the handlebar like this, and he leaves it, and he just walks away. And this brand new bike just goes kaplang, and the mirror goes to the one side. Everybody in the dealership comes running around, and he's like, I've got this. And he picks this up, and he puts this, and he just spills it over to the other side. And everybody's like, are you all right? Is it okay? He says, hey, if I'm going to take this into Angola or wherever I'm going, I need to know what's going to break so I can fix it before I go.
Oh, wow.
Literally taking it out of the dealership. Okay.
Can you imagine their faces?
Anyway, that's Tracks for Africa. How did we get on that?
Blimey. I was talking about the trip I've just done, and how having the 911 with me would have been a good idea.
Yeah,
to sort out the SOS problems.
Africa, but anyway, so there's an interesting story.
Cool. Right. Next one. Cheers for that one, Brian. Next one, Sam Vincent. Hi to Stephan. This might have been covered, but it would be interesting to know how you go about your bike selection and development of the eZcans. I've got one on my Super Adventure S and love it. Incredibly simple to use and gives load of features to the already great light sets. So how do you go about selecting which manufacturers and which bikes to work with for the eZcans?
Demand.
Makes
as
sense.
Easy as that. It started off with the GS 911. We had a boatload, let's keep this family friendly, boatload of information, and not just on the diagnosis side of the BMWs, but also internally. And, we've played with the internal buses. And so that was a natural evolvement to having a lot of information on BMW and making a eZcan for BMWs. Mm-hmm. And then after seeing really how popular it was, of course then the demand starts, and people are when will you do this, when will you do that, when will you do this, and eventually you kind of recognize what will be a cult bike in terms of a good seller in the market. Coupled with people that want to kit it out with the kind of things that the eZcan enables you to fit. Next week, Tuesday, keep an eye on Instagram, but wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Norden 901 and Triumph Tiger 1200.
Wow.
A Triumph Tiger 900 to follow shortly on its heels. But the 1200, and that kind of, is not a plug, but I have been super surprised because we've had so many requests for the 1200, and we have had distributors now placing pre-orders for the product and placing another pre-order for the same product, the 1200 Tiger, because of the demand that they've been getting, and we haven't even released it yet. So you can't get a feel for the products and the brands, and that's kind of how it goes, So, shout out to, anybody that if there is stuff that you are brands and models that you would like us to cover, let us know. I mean, to us, I'm digressing once again a little bit, but when we released the very first eZcan, these yellow ones, I think 20 January 2007, we purposefully shipped them from Cape Town in South Africa. We had a couple of guys over the forums that went, could I distribute it in this country or that country? We said, we don't want distribution at this point in time, because for the next year, if not a little bit longer, and it took us to September 2009 before we got our first distributor in the States, we wanted to sell them because it meant the only place and the only people to contact with any comments, problems, requests, feature requests was us. And that's kind of how we build our products. We listen to the market, and we listen to feature requests, and we listen to what the market wants, and we add those kind of things. I mean, those guys that have eZcans, the Generation 2s, which have been in the market for years now, hang on to your boots, because there's some really cool stuff coming this year. And they're just software upgrades and some additional plugins, and that's all feature requests, and having had the foresight to equip the product with the ability to kind of do certain hardware additions and software updates and so forth. So but ultimately it is about customer demand. If a customer wants, where would we be if the customers didn't want the product, or if we didn't develop products that the customers wanted? That's the ultimate aim. If we can have as much fun as we have developing the products, give as much satisfaction to the customer using them, it's a win-win.
Yeah, absolutely. So if someone has a bike at the moment and there is no eZcan available for it, what's the best method for them to contact Hex Innovate?
eZcan website, eZcan, there's an info contact page, there's a support site, our Hex Innovate. They all go either to the support guys, or it goes to us, or it goes, at some point in time, it reaches us.
Gotcha.
As I said, Pete is GS911. He's the product owner thereof, and I'm still currently the product owner for eZcan. At some point in time, I'm going to find the right person to take it on and move on to. We've got a couple of things in the wings, but it just my team is really good, and it'll find itself. That the message will find me in some way, shape, or form.
Awesome. As you said, folks, if you're listening to this and you got some ideas, then certainly direct them Stephan's way and the team's way, because without them knowing there's the demand, why would they create something for a bike if they don't know there's a demand for it? So let them know. Right, Sam has another question. If the above hasn't spurred on a 20-minute discussion, are there any plans to bring additional features to the Hex, and can we know any of them? Well, you sort of alluded to that. There's some developments coming.
We're talking about the Hex eZcan, I'm assuming.
Yes.
So new variants in terms of models being covered. It's no secret. I've been spending a lot of time on the Ducatis as of late. The Tenerés, my toy of choice at this point in time is the Tenere World Raid. Love the simplicity. Kudos to BMW for everything they've done for me over the years, but just getting on a bike that is genuinely just the bike, and it's well balanced and it's well made and it's robust. And I'm digressing, but amazing. Anyway, so 700s, all of them, and then there's a couple of others, but those are the models. In terms of functionality, probably the most requested functions are having the big drainers. Now, you must remember, when we started this, we went, guys want extra lights, So some OEs are worse than others in terms of, what their headlights are capable of. But, when we were thinking sort of extra lights, we were, where's my little, there we go. This is kind of what I had in mind, let's put on extra lights. And they became something like this, and you're going to hear the family. It's about that, and ultimately, probably the biggest, most sold one is the Denali D7 these days. This is, I like to say, it finds the future 2 days ahead. And I still feel I have to do some education in terms of for the customer finding the right light. It's much like choosing a bike. You can't just go, which one has the most horsepower? That's the one I want. Ultimately it's got to fit the purpose. Anyway, so one of the most requested features is having the big current drain products like the big lights, the heated gear, only be powered once the engine is running. So, that is, 2 ticks and a bob for us. And, that's probably one of the first things being rolled out in the next quarter. And then there's a couple of, nice little features that are add-ons, to that and sort of similar functionality that we're doing. But what a lot of guys probably don't know is that one of the output channels of the eZcan, which we have 4, we have each channel has 3 wires. We've got the main power, we've got the main ground, which if you drive a normal sort of this is the Denali stuff is really great quality 3-wire lights, and these are really great quality 2-wire lights, which means they only have a power and a ground. So then we kind of control the brightness by controlling the power and so forth. But for the Denali guys, we use the third. The power is on there permanently, and then we use the third wire, which is the sort of their data dim technology to control the brightness of the light. But on the one channel, we have not just the data dim or the brightness control. We have the LIN bus, which is you're familiar with CAN bus at this point in time and everything on the bikes. So shortly after Bosch introduced the CAN bus, there was something, they started working on something LIN bus wise, which is a single wire low data transfer bus, to which you do not have to pay Bosch any annuities for every product used. So that's why the automotive industry kind of went into that direction. only for low data, low throughput kind of applications. So we have one of these LIN buses on one of those channels, and we are working on LIN buttons that you just plug in. So the LIN bus is literally a multi-drop, so you can add all kinds of things. So we are going to add, 1 button, 10 buttons. For the 4x4 stuff, we can add a whole button panel if you like. We are going to add a LIN expander, which gives you 4 more channels, but low power, like say 1.5 amps. The guys love the B6 brake lights. They love those little sort of accent lights on the emblems. They love DRLs in the front, those kind of things. And it kind of hurts financially and morally to use and dedicate one of the big channels, that can drive an air horn of 20 amps, for something that draws, a half amp. So we're doing one of these, and it just plugs into the LIN bus, and the data controls the outputs just like any other eZcan output. And you'll have this, and you can expand your control to whatever you want to do. And then I'll be surprised if we don't get this question, Bluetooth. We're going to get
that was tip of my tongue, ready to come out.
Is it? So that's going to be coming as well. It should have, can just as well, go there. But those are all things we aimed at for 2022. But given the semiconductor challenge that we had, we spent on various products, 1, 2, 3, 4 of our product ranges, not just eZcans, all across the board. We redesigned the products with, different semiconductors, different processors, different whatever. So, think, like typically what Tesla has done. So they've got their center consoles, and they've got 3 different chips in those. And if you've got the one, it'll run on that one. And if you've got another one, you compile the code for that, and it runs on that one. So wherever we can get, semiconductor, we can, make our products and, give them to the rest of the world. Which, as no product to sell is no income. And, that's a very bad thing for any company and the families that depend on those companies. So that took up most of 2022. And which is why we're now releasing sort of, the triumphs and the, everything else that follows, because that was just one of those things that you had to do. It's one of those, you're in the water, you're swimming, but you bloody hell need to find a buoy now. No matter, food is not an option, drink is not an option. You need to sort of, find a way to swim. And that's what you do. And that kind of just, digressed us a little bit. But it's a good thing, because now we have multiple sources, and we have multiple options, and we have a really stable supply, which is great. So to whomever asked that question, later this year. So Sam Vincent. I'm not going to ask it. I'm not going to give a direct or a definite date, because these things are fluid. But yeah, that is so big on my to-do list. I just want to take a phone and control stuff and switch it on and off. And you're on the CAN bus, you might be able to see a little more than you can see on your dash at this point in time. But all in good time. So
wow, that sounds really interesting. Like, electronics aren't my thing, but that sounds quite tantalizing, actually, having that access. It would actually spur on my interest into how the bike's actually working. Because at the moment, I push the start button, and that's it. That's the extent of my knowledge, and to be honest, it's the extent of my will to know anything about the bike. Is it going to go vroom when I push the ignition? That's all I'm worried about. But I think I personally have this sort of mindset that once I start digging into something and I get an interest for it, well, that's, it's all in then, isn't it? So yeah, I can see how somebody like you do a lot of work with Steve Abel, don't you, over at a bike thing?
We do.
Yeah, and I mean, he has that mindset, doesn't he, where he really gets into something once he's got his teeth into it. And I see what he's doing now. What a great guy. Oh, yeah. Very, very interesting chap to talk to, isn't he? He's had some life. Much so.
Would be interesting, maybe to get his take on Brew Time at some point in time.
He's been on. I've had him on Brew Time. Yeah, had him on during COVID, actually.
Yeah, but he literally he has a nice way of thinking about things, and
Yeah.
you'll see that the tiger that we've been working on was his. He literally said, "Hey, I've got a tiger. Come on by." And his 2IC Tom, great guy, has the Norden. So I was, I've got a couple of Nordens at my disposal here as well. But there it's just it's the people I know, and it's the people I like spending time with, and they're great chaps. We bumped into each other at an ABR, believe it or not. I have, you can't, it's out of picture, but I have this felt Stetson that I brought from the States many moons ago. And being, one of these felt Stetsons, they roll up really nice into a roll. And you get somewhere and you flip them open and, off you go. And it really retains its shape and whatever. And I jokingly refer to that as my marketing hat, because in the UK, everybody wears one of those, little, peak caps or something like it. Very few people I see at something like an ABR wearing a Stetson. And we knew of each other. I can't remember how we got talking, and then sort of at some point in time we exchanged messages. I think he mailed the company and asked whether I was going to be there, and eventually I said, "Yeah, I am there." And if you see a guy with a Stetson, that'll be me. And walking down, he's like, "Hey, come down, have a beer," and that's how we got talking. And really love what he does. You've got to be amazed by the passion as well. I mean, he's literally, I once got there, completely different bike, none of his. And I took my laptop and I was about to do this on the metal part of the tank, literally, the tank flap, because I'm very cautious. I'm either on the seat or, you've got to be, I don't ride customers' bikes when I do tests. If we need a ride test, I give them a GoPro and I log everything. I say, it's your bike, you go and ride,
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. Oh, wait. He's got this microfiber cloth, and he was like, he said, "Please don't be offended." I said, "I'm not. I like it." That's the kind of the attention to detail and the passion he has for what he does. So
absolutely,
very cool.
It was interesting having Steve on in the podcast because he just bought the new house that he has there. It's a beautiful big house, and during the conversation, obviously beer was involved, but he was saying how he'd done the big, massive sort of multinational company thing where he'd made all his money and he'd done all that, and he was just quite happy just having a little small thing that he was just ticking away with. And then he mentioned that he had these outbuildings, and he was like, "I've got this idea. I think I might start," he started, these ideas started generating in his head, and he was like, "I could maybe turn it into a workshop and then maybe some accommodation for people to stay in whilst I work on their bikes." And then by the end of the podcast, he's like had this new plan for this new empire. And literally within a week, he started, well, all these plans started coming up on social media. This is where the new workshop's going to be. And it was funny, within about 6 months, what is now full on a bike thing that we know of was born, and like he's taken on staff. It's just incredible what's happening.
What a pretty place as well. I mean, what he's done to that barn from what it was. I saw it when it was what it was when he bought it, to what it is now. Anybody that is thinking of having work done on their bikes, this is not a plug. He does phenomenal work. But what a place. I mean, go grab shout out to Steve for his biscotti. I have always been besotted on biscotti. And if he knows I come around, there's this, I swear he does it on purpose, but there's this glass jar of biscotti. And great coffee, and that biscotti takes a serious hit by the time I leave. Just general nice guys.
Absolutely, very nice folk. Sam has one last question for you. This is on a different level, and he says, to bring the level down to my immaturity, would you rather have finger length nipples or nipple length fingers? Did you think this would come up today?
I did not. If I have to choose, I would probably go for the nipples, because I'm sure cosmetically I can have them altered. But I've really got good use for my fingers.
Good point. Yeah, I'll
Sam,
go with you on that one.
I don't know whether you're going to be at the ABR or something, or armchair or something like that, but find me, look for the Stetson. You're going to get a beer for this, for sure.
He will 100% come and find you. I'm sure he will.
Absolutely.
Right, and Chief Chips, hi all. Hope you're all back from the snow safe and well. Yes, we did. Thank you very much. Don't forget to tell them your ghost story. No excuse for not training now. My ghost story, very boring. We'll not get into that. We'll do that over a beer, actually, at the ABR. I'll come find you at the ABR and we can discuss ghost stories. Neil Hamilton. Hi guys. Be interested to know when the promised Bluetooth adapter that Steve from A Bike Thing mentioned on a YouTube vid over 24 months ago, and I asked about it again at the Birmingham Bike Show in 2021 with no confirmed delivery date. Bluetooth access via the app is a must and has to be a winner for firmware updates and on-the-fly changes of digging out a laptop instead of digging out a laptop and a cable to apply these. Well, as we've already just discussed, Neil, it's coming very soon.
And I want to tell Neil, interestingly enough, can't divulge too much, but tens and tens of thousands of eZcans. And we have thus far had 2 people who said, I do not have a Windows laptop. I do not have a Mac. I am stuck. What do I do? 2 people. And it's an interesting story how that came to be. The initial one was designed with Bluetooth. And when we spoke to the agency for automotive certification, they went, oh, you have a wireless device in there. Oh, that might change the problem completely. I think we will get back to you, but this will be a problem. I don't think, I cannot. Oh, no, this will be problematic. So, the wireless stuff went.
That was dropped.
So that's kind of why the first one never had it. And then we kind of designed the second one to have it as a plugin, and, everything else happened. It's a matter of priority, but I agree with him. I would, moving into the adventure side of things on the cars, but even on the bikes, sometimes you just want to change something. And, wink, wink, nudge, nudge. The eZcan obviously knows what you have the outputs configured for. Let's just hypothetically assume you have a left auxiliary 1 light and a right auxiliary 1 light on separate channels because you want to fade them or have them flash with indicators or whatever the reason is. You have an air horn and you have a brake light. Now, let's make it a... I regret what I said. So let's say we have auxiliary lights on one channel, we have an air horn, we have heated gear, and we have a brake light. So there is very little you can real-time change on a brake light or want to change on the brake light. It does what it does. I'm talking changes versus settings. A setting is, do I want it to stay on, like mimic a brake light, or do I want it to, what we call California legal flashing? It goes, you apply the brake, it goes flashy, 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 on. Okay, or it's flashy, flashy, flashy the whole time whilst you've got the brake hold. Those are settings, and you can set those up, and the Bluetooth will do that. But the Bluetooth will also be aware of what your output channels are. So the only things you might want to set in real time are, let's face it, the brightness of your lights, and maybe your heated gear settings. You might have, because we link the heated gear to your heated grips, and you can change, if you have heated grip settings, low, medium, and high, then you can set the eZcan to have certain percentages of output depending on what you set your heated grips to for your heated jacket, which is phenomenal, by the way. But you might find yourself in the snow and go, I wish I had a little more, or, the hot is too hot, but the medium one, instead of 65%, I would have liked that a little higher. Then, you'll open your eZcan app and it'll flip from, here's your main window, and here's your auxiliary lights, and here's your heated gear, because the other ones are under settings. You can change stuff in settings and whatever. But those are the things you can change in real life. And you have your little slider, and you go, vroom, 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 and that's why you want something like that. It's so handy. And Bluetooth, especially Bluetooth low energy, it just works. So I feel your pain, Neil. Please feel mine. I would have loved to have had this out 2 years ago, but life happened and COVID happened, and it's just been one of those things. but it's coming because I want it.
There you go, Neil. It's on the way, pal. It's on the way. Right, next one. Mark Paskin. I have an eZcan on my GS and it's brilliant. As a software developer myself, I would enjoy hearing about some reverse engineering or cloning protection projects you have worked on, but I realise this will bore the pants off of 97% of people listening. So it may be better to ask, what achievements in your career are you most proud of, apart from forming a successful business?
Tough one, but he's biased me a little in my thinking. It's one of those things where you plant a seed and you go, don't look at the seed, don't look at the seed, don't look at the seed, but cloning. So this device, we woke up one morning and there were copies of it on Alibaba. And then you go, oh, crap. I must say that's not quite you completely there. The predecessor to the VW stuff, we woke up one morning and there was a clone of that. And as I alluded to initially, you don't sell product, you don't make money, and, you don't pay the people that are dependent on you. Mm-hmm. So it's very important that we, get rewarded for the hard work and effort that we do, in the right ratio. And anybody that does the cloning, obviously that bites you really, really hard. And cloning used to be, we spent a heck of a lot of time understanding how the cloning works, how they clone the stuff, how they find that, what they do. And if he's interested in that, please send me a private message. And, I love this stuff. And, I'm a little rusty and I've been having a couple of other things on my plate these days. But, I've been recently actually just sent a video to my team of a guy doing a glitching attack on the Apple AirTags. So literally he opened the Apple AirTag, noticed that it has a Nordic chip on it, and went, I've seen something about the Nordic chips. And what they then do is these processors, obviously to be low power, they use low voltages within the processor. So you might have a 3.3 or 3 volt sort of source, a little battery, and that gets applied, but inside it's got a little, in the actual processor, it has another low voltage regulator that regulated to 1.8 volts, sometimes even 0.8 volts. And these things sort of, power the core. And because they use lower voltages, they draw lower power, and you get the low power. And, that's where the whole thing comes from. But in order to get this voltage stable, they bring one of those pins out and they say, oh, please, when you design this thing, put a big ass, not that big ass, but for what it is, put a capacitor on there. So just to smooth out the voltage. So what guys figured out that if they glitch the power at certain times after startup. So what happens? The processor, you write code, you program it, you set a protection bit, and the protection bit goes. Somebody comes in from the outside, says, "I want to read your code." It goes, my protection bit is set. I can't give you the code. So what this glitching of the actual internal core does, so what they do is this thing starts up, and then at a certain time, random but not so random, they literally just glitch the power on there by just short-circuiting it for a fraction of a second, and that sort of throws the core into a hissy fit. And you do that enough around a certain point, and you get to that exact point where the core internally, not even running your code, it boots up and it goes, am I protected? It gets some jolt and it goes, nope, I'm not protected. And from the outside you can actually ask it, are you protected? And it mostly says yes, and it goes, oh no, I'm not protected. You go, thank you very much, and you read the code. That's just one of the attacks, but that's a glitching attack. And this is what this guy did on the AirTag, and he then changed the code so that when you take an AirTag and you NFC it, then you can get the person's details and so forth, if you want to return whatever it is.
What's NFC mean? What's that mean?
Near field communication. So when you pay with Apple Pay or something like that, that is near field communication. That is just you've got almost touched something. It's very low power, but it's RF, like RFID. sort of similar thing. So the AirTag has something like, it uses Bluetooth for location and talking to all the Apple devices and stuff like that, but it's also got NFC in. So if you find it and you touch it and it has it enabled, then you can see the details of the person if they said the details or whatever. And he set in the code that he then modified and wrote back to the device just to show people that he actually had the code and modified it. There's something they call Rick rolling. So they play Rick Astley's YouTube video on there. So if you NFC this thing, YouTube starts and Rick Astley starts playing. Anyway, so that is sort of really something I enjoy and I kind of, figure out. And the reason was, when we designed these guys, which is, well, actually, as you can tell by the shape, this was the original one that was cloned. This was the one that followed it. We jokingly refer to it as our whiskey bottle. Would fit perfectly well. We spent more time developing the security around this product than we did implementing the actual GS 901 functionality. Now, granted, that is only at release. And once you've done the security, except for the occasional tweak and so forth, then you kind of add more functionality and so forth. But we spent a load of time sort of, doing that. And that was because of, the Chinese clones that were available and so forth. Yeah. And that's high up there, and seeing as anti-cloning tickles him, so that's something I'm very proud of, myself and the team. I mean, this is I scratch the surface and they dig deeper. I'm kind of the guy where some days I feel like I don't do anything, and somebody.
Oh, my video just disappeared. Sorry, mate. This has happened before. It does say
TeapotOne, so that's very cool. There we go.
New it's camera. Reverted to that camera. Sorry, it does this sometimes with the GoPro.
No worries. Somebody said I'm the glue that holds stuff together, and that's sometimes what you have to be. You've got to plant the seeds and be the glue. But anyway, so the anti-cloning stuff that we've done, I really like, and it's essential, but it's also interesting. It's super interesting. So very proud of that.
I wish you were I wish you'd be my teacher at school, Stephan. Your passion for what you do and for what it's infectious. Like, I don't have any interest in electronics, but you make it interesting. You make me want to know more about stuff. It's infectious.
I have a feeling that one beer will turn into many beers whenever we see it.
Yes, definitely. I'm looking forward to the ABR. It's going to be a good giggle.
Absolutely.
Right, last one of the clan questions. Thank you very much for that one, Mark. Last one, Chris Kemp. Hi, guys. Hope you're well. How about some Friday night philosophy? There's always questions about if you could go back in time, when and why, etc. How about if you could change or invent something in the future that would improve life now? What would it be? Could be in 110 or 1,000 years' time. So if you could invent something in the future that would improve life now, how would that work?
I am pretty sure, I'll take a stab at this. I'm pretty sure in the foreseeable future, we will have abundant access to clean energy. Easy, cost-effective, no-cost clean energy. And if I could, I would really want to do that, then take it back here now, because we're in deep doo-doo, and with enough energy, there is so much we can do. And, yes, I enjoy an EV on the side, but that's just for fun. I mean, EVs are really fun if you think about torque and those kind of things. But
definitely,
we do have problems. I mean, if you think globally in terms of just the bare necessities, I mean, and this was pre-Russia and the Ukraine and so forth. But energy is expensive, and energy is a hampering factor of moving us forward, of the sort of the new age of industrialization. Energy, absolutely. I would, put that at energy.
Where do you think that's going to come from? I mean, like for me, for my Neanderthal brain and understanding, to me, it's just screaming. It's got to be nuclear, surely. But then that isn't totally clean, is it? Obviously, there's a byproduct from nuclear, although allegedly that is quite small for the amount of energy that it will produce. But what do you think? Where do you think this is going to come from? This clean energy?
There are a lot of rumors on fusion. Actually getting that going, and I've seen and read some things as of late about small scale. We're talking, the room as opposed to the city, the country, but we're making headway. So I know too little about that. One of the first things my grandpa told me was figure out what you don't know, that's where your knowledge of it ends. And unfortunately, I've never been a nuclear or a physicist of any shape, way, or form, but I do like where we're going there. I think it has legs. Still a lot of work to be done, but it has legs.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right there, aren't you? Energy and finding our source of energy for the future, that's got to be one of the biggest explorations for mankind at the moment, isn't it? It's like what is going to be our next?
Imagine clean energy was a non-issue, and imagine clean energy was the size of something really small. That makes so many portable things actually work. It makes exploration into the vast unknowns available, whether that is into space or whether that is into the deepest, darkest Africa. If you've got an abundance of energy and it's easily accessible, I'd love that. I don't think I can fathom where that would take us. But everything we do at this point in time takes energy. So
now you touched on EVs there. Do you have any thoughts on progressing your work into EVs?
Oh yeah, we are.
It's not much you can say.
Very careful what's under NDA and what's not under NDA, but we are working with some companies that are EV associated.
Okay, gotcha.
I love EVs myself. I think they are great fun. I'm not going to go down green and better, and it gets crazy, and it really. Both sides of the argument have strong points to stand on. But bloody hell! I have a little Tesla, the Model 3, and always wanted one. I think I probably made a reservation 10 years ago in South Africa. By the way, that reservation still stands because they're still not available in South Africa. If anybody in South Africa wants a reservation once they're available, come see me. But putting your foot down and 0 to 60 in 3.2 seconds, or whatever it is, for sub 50 grand at the time, there is no sports car that does that. So it just doesn't get old. It puts a smile up here. If I didn't have ears, it would go right around. There are other things to them as well, and fun is most certainly one of those. That being said, motorcycles have challenges. I was most recently at the MCIA, Motorcycle Industry Association's annual conference, and they had representatives of the government there, and quite a number of them actually. Was nice to see. But I asked the question because we are the only country in the world, let this sink in, the only country in the world that has mandated 2030 for zero tailpipe emissions for LCAT vehicles.
Wow.
Okay. And I'm going, that's cool. And, it has its advantages, but why? So I'm sitting there. Sorry, I'm using my iPhone as the camera. I'm on my phone, sitting there. I'm going, let's find a report on, what is the impact of LCAT on, on emissions. And I found a 2020 report or something like that, which was. It broke it down into the bigger portions of the carbon footprint of the UK, because I just wanted to know UK. And transport was 26% of the carbon footprint. So I went, yep, pick me, please pick me. And I got a question in, and I said, so of this 26%, I'm assuming that is that covers air and rail and sea. Obviously I'm stoking the fire a little bit and planting sort of this a little bit, but so how much of that is LCAT? So, firstly, they're not sure, and I don't think air, rail, and sea is actually under transport. So you can imagine, how do you associate sea and air, for instance, to the UK? The first 10 minutes in our airspace or something, I don't know. So that's not even in there. But of that, the LCATs are 0.4% of the 26%, so which I'm going... and I'm all for EV. I've got
what
one,
effect is it going to have? Yeah,
and the thinking is that they want to advance, the powers that be want to advance the UK into EV for the motorcycle space, because if we don't, or if we mandate it, it forces people to develop and design and progress and whatever. And everybody's doing that anyway. And I'm sorry, I'm going on a little bit of a rant, but this is a bit of a pet peeve. People are doing that already, but the OEs, I can tell you, are having a tough time. It is not that easy. People regularly make the mistake and they go, the Tesla out there has a 74 kilowatt hour battery, and I can charge that 20 to 80% in 20 odd minutes. So if I have a 7.4 kilowatt hour battery, which is a tenth of that, surely 20 to 80% should be 2 minutes. It doesn't work that way. That one has active cooling where you can pump a heck of a lot of energy into. This one is too small and compact to have active cooling. And maybe, they will be active cooling. And don't get me wrong, the whole battery space is evolving, and there are breakthroughs around the corner. Are they going to be there commercially before 2030? Debatable. I don't know. So it's not as easy, and it's not directly proportional. That being said, I am super excited that they are thinking ahead and wanting to have the UK be on the forefront of that. But I can also see that the OEs are really having a tough time. Some of the OEs, they had a whole panel of OEs up there, and they were going, we might not, and we have our own thing set and our own sort of timeline, and we're going 2040. We will have this, that, and the following, and they're working towards that. So. EVs are a lot of fun, but on motorcycles, just not quite yet. Maybe in 3 years' time. But you've done that EV trip. It's not there yet. It's super for commuting. Super. If I have to charge it every night at home, and all I need is at home charging overnight. Lovely. I'm thinking of getting a little scooter just for, the vegetable run or something like it, because it's fun. But it doesn't get you any further than that.
Yeah, there are some real limitations when you want to travel. And I think at the moment, it's not as bad as people think, certainly, like traveling on an electric motorbike. But it is limited compared to a petrol bike, for sure. And I think with the technology levels that we have at present, you're never going to have the same convenience factor You just never are. You're never going to be able to just walk up, recharge it in 4 or 5 minutes, get back on your bike and ride off. That's not going to happen. That's going to take a wholesale change in battery technology, in technology overall, before we get to that stage. And a lot of cooperation between the energy companies, between all the different manufacturers and battery technologies to bring in a standard that may then allow some form of interchangeable battery. But even then, at the moment, a usable battery for a motorbike to give you, say, 100-mile range is 100 kilograms. So even if that was interchangeable, how are you going to lift 100 kilograms out of a motorbike and struggle across the forecourt? You're just not, are you? Yeah. So there's going to be a lot of development needed in a lot of areas, I think, before we get...
I think the nice thing, though, is there are a lot of people a lot cleverer than us that are working on it, and it will come.
Yes.
I'm just not sure that we are realistic about the time frames. So I'm not dishing it. I'm super keen. I mean, if I can get on an electric bike, do 150 miles, charge for 30 minutes, and do another 150 miles, phenomenal. You've got me sold. Where do I order? Thank you very much. Yeah. Because you don't do 150 miles and not take a half an hour break. But the interesting thing is, then you need to have the infrastructure and you need to have the charging. That's the whole other thing that kind of got discussed because, government was saying they've got 32, 33, 35, I can't remember, 30 odd something thousand charge points in the UK and so forth. So I'm like, how many of those are high-speed chargers? They go, about can't remember the number, but it's a small number. And I mean, what do you define as high speed? We're working on that. We're changing the definition of high speed because I've got first-hand experience with the Tesla. I get to a Tesla charging station and there are 12 stations and they charge 20% to 80% in 24 minutes, which means if I have 12 cars ahead of me, I'm going to have a 20-minute wait time before I can charge. I look at most of the other ones that charge a lot slower because there are two key factors here. The one is how fast you charge in terms of how fast can you charge and what can you deliver and what can the vehicle accept and how many do you have. If you get to a 50 kilowatt charge station, which is seen as high speed at this point in time by government, and it's got 2 outlets and you've got 12 cars, and at 50 kilowatt, they're probably charging the better part of 2.5 hours, and they've got 2 and you've got 12. So in about, I can't get too much great African wine. I can't do maths now.
15 hours, 6 times 2.5. Is that right?
That's like see you tomorrow, before I get my car charged. Yeah. So, there's having it charged rapidly and available is one thing. And the other thing is actually having the infrastructure and just being able to pull in there and go, thanks very much, there are enough of them. And it's coming. It's going to be there. I am convinced. But, nothing is ever easy. Doesn't mean we don't have to do it. It's going to happen. I mean, I tell you, in 10, maybe not 10, in 15 years' time, you're going to have an app to find the petrol station for the classic that we all still want to have in the garage, because the roles will be reversed, and it is happening. But my point is we're not quite there yet, and I'm not sure 2030 is quite there. It could be. I mean, all we need is a breakthrough in the chemistry. Who knows? That takes about 5 years to commercialize, maybe a bit more, give or take. But it's a tough one.
Right, electric always sends us down an avenue on these podcasts. Right, that's all the clan questions over on Patreon. There's still a couple on Instagram and Facebook. Stephan, we've been going for over 2 hours. Are you okay to carry on?
I don't know whether you heard the door just opened and my little one sort of peeked in and she kind of sent me a kiss and she's going to bed now. So we're good. There's still wine in the bottle. They've gone to bed. I'm happy.
Right. You probably saw my door opening there. That was my dog just sticking her head in to see what I'm up to. Yeah, right. Excellent. Thank you very much to everyone that left questions there over in the clan. The next ones are on Instagram, so it's at TeapotOne Insta. First one, at Riches1000XR. Are Hex going to create a cable or software that can get the Zumo XT to work with the Wonder Wheel? Is that something that's in?
It's not. I categorically state. Is it possible? I don't know. If it is, might be a fun project. We have these things we refer to as Friday projects. They're just fun, and they're not necessarily commercial of any way, shape, or form. But we know how the Wonder Wheel works. We know how it integrates. We also know there's the CAN side of it, but there's also the LIN side of it. So actually, the BMW Navigator is, as you know, a rebranded Garmin, but running different firmware, so you can't put the standard Garmin in there. But that is on the LIN bus. And, we've done a lot of logging on that, and, there's a lot of data on there. But I'm not sure it's possible on the XT, but drop me a line if you've got any info, please share. I'd be keen to have a look. It sounds like one of those, maybe we could, but just because we can.
There you go, Rich. Drop Stephan a little line. Excellent. What we've got? It's got a couple of comments there from To Ride the World from Simon and Lisa. Bruce, you're going to love Steph. He's one of the nicest guys in the industry and a complete freaking tech rocket scientist. Yes, he is. Absolutely.
That's Simon.
Yeah. They're cracking people, aren't they? I had them on here. They're really, really nice people.
I probably met them. I don't know the year. I'm sure they will correct me when this comes live. But I flew in from a business trip out of Germany, landed in Cape Town International, and I had a colleague of mine who sort of lived between the airport is between where he lives and the office. And he's like, dude, I'll pick you up. No worries, and we landed a little early, and there's this lovely little, Vida espresso bar as you come out through the doors. And I've looked at this, and I called him up, and he's like, at least a half an hour. I'm like, no worries. A couple of hours without a good espresso is terrible. So I sat down, and in walked these two. I love referring to them as youngsters in their kit, and it said To Ride the World, and they sat down, and I'm like, hey, so I'm like, tap Simon on the shoulder, and said, who are you guys, and what do you do? And he's like, well, and I could see Lisa, she just went, oh. And I won't repeat what she later told me she thought, but I think her parents were flying in, and she was super excited to see them, and she didn't want to talk trip or people or whatever, and she just focused they've got to come out those doors, and I struck up a conversation with Simon, and probably 2 months later, they were testing the first prototypes of GS911 in the desert in Namibia. And another month later, I used them as an excuse to move in with my girlfriend for a month and a bit whilst they lived in my apartment, planning their South America trip. And that's kind of where the friendship started, way back when. Brilliant. And we met up wherever we can, a couple of times in the States, and they I remember some fond nights in a jacuzzi, and we met up in Thailand, where ask Simon about Thailand, and all right. And the funding he got out of me in Thailand and how we did that. So I'll leave that for next time.
That's definitely not one for a public broadcast, I assume. Right, we'll save that for. He's coming to ABR. We'll do it at the ABR.
There we go.
They are like overland gods. So when I was first thinking about my trip and going along to all the different meetings and events, the Horizons Unlimited hub and all that sort of stuff, there were people that I just, even though they were there and they were very open, very welcoming to anybody that wanted to go up to chat to them, I couldn't bring myself to do it. There's people like that. John McGuinness is one that, I know that he's really friendly, and I know he'll chat away to people, but even now to this day, I can't bring myself to go and chat to the man. I just feel like,
I'm not. Is this?
Yeah, I feel like I'm not worthy. And I was like that with him. And then it wasn't until much later on years after I'd done my trip. I think I was at an overland event or something, and the beer flows. And they just came over and sat down at a table where I was and started talking. And it was like, oh my God, it's them. And then you just start talking and they're like, oh, they're really nice people. And it just goes from there, doesn't it?
They are super nice.
Yeah. Lovely folk.
I guess I'm biased in that in South Africa, we didn't have these events, and I didn't follow, social media wasn't a thing back then. So I had no clue, didn't know who these people were. And, much like, I'm still not I'm not a trend follower, or, the other day I greeted, my kid's school, hello, Surrey. And, I said to my wife, pretty lady. And she goes, oh, you know who that is? And I said, no, is she somebody? She says, yeah, that is. I'm like, no clue. And likewise, talking to a chap, and eventually somebody says, he's a UK footballer, or was a UK footballer. No clue. Sorry, I'm not into football. And
just a nice bloke, yeah.
Totally nice bloke. And I think it does. It does change the dynamic if you don't really know who they are, because there's a people kind of connection, as opposed to as you say, once you know who they are and what they are, and likewise with Simon and Lisa, I had no clue, and at the time it was relatively early in their travels. They'd I say early, but they'd gone through the whole of Europe, Russia, something like that, and made their way to South Africa. But I was clueless. I was. Come, let's have a beer and let's talk about BMWs.
Yeah. And it's nice. I would imagine that being people like them who are instantly recognizable for who they are and what they do within that sphere, within the motorcycle adventure sphere, it must be really nice for them to have somebody who doesn't know who they are, so they can just sit and have a normal conversation. Mm-hmm. Anyway, right, back to Insta. Andy C89. Hi from Dublin. I would like to know if installation of the Hex eZcan invalidates BMW warranty. I love the podcast and all of your content. Keep up the fantastic work. Thank you very much, Andy. I
hope not.
Better not.
So it was absolutely developed. So we kind of digressed, as we did many a time tonight. That we were actually developing a product for the sort of 4x4 market, and we developed a lot of what you see in the eZcan now for that product. But it started off as one of those Friday projects, and it got a little more love and dearness. But it was still, every time I got a latest update, I went, how do I update this? What do I do? How do I configure it? And it was just, it could make coffee automatically at a certain time if you wanted to. And it was just way too complex. And I went, guys, awesome work we did on, the algorithms for the fusing and everything else, but can't sell this to a customer. And we put that on the shelf. And then, when the K001 chassis was launched, it got increasingly more difficult to fit accessories to those bikes. And we had a couple of questions, and ourselves, we were going, oh, how do we do this? And we're like, oh, hang on a minute, grab that off the shelf and, put it down. And so how do we make this easy? And hence, I can't claim it. One of my colleagues, Zul, super keen biker, probably the most capable biker of all of us in the company. He kind of came up or coined the phrase. And we sort of, shrunk it down and, made it what it is. But the whole point of the product was to make it easy to fit accessories without cutting into harnesses or, doing any of the likes. The whole point was not to invalidate the OE warranty. So much so that at not the last Birmingham NEC bike show, we had a couple of dealers come up to us and going, when are you doing this for our brand? Because I'm tired of having to replace harnesses of customers, or people that fit them for customers that go, I'm sure this can go here. I'll just strip this wire a little bit, and then oops, and then it's just a nightmare. So that was literally what the eZcan was developed for. So we're very picky about what we do, where we fit things, and even the bikes that we do, so that we can have them as plug-in options, and no cutting, no whatever. So the whole point is of maintaining the OE warranty. And, a lot of bikes, even in the UK, are financed PCP, something like that. And what you want to do is by the time you give it back, you just go unplug, plug these two together. Thank you very much. Here's your bike in the state I got it in, and that's it. So that's the whole point.
So, Andy, no, it won't invalidate your warranty. Absolutely. Right. Ricky Tang. Hi, guys. I'm going to try to use my GS 911 Wi-Fi to record telemetry on track days this year on my R1250R. Not the intended use, I know. A couple of things that will hold me back are the low sampling rate at approximately, well, we're going to get technical here, I think. The low sampling rate at approximately 1 hertz. Even getting 4 hertz would be great. Also, it appears I can only record real-time data from one controller at a time. I take it that these are bike-side limitations. I have absolutely no idea what Ricky's just said there, but looking at your face, you do.
Okay. Speaking to Ricky. So before your 1250, it was most certainly a bike side limitation. The current bikes, given the protocol and everything else involved, we could go down to sampling every 100 milliseconds, which gives you a 10 hertz sampling rate. You have to take into account that the more things you sample, the less your sampling rate decreases. So, Ricky might be in luck for a couple of things. However, slight teaser, there is something coming to GS911 called Flight Recorder, which, yes, you can currently, as Ricky pointed out, pick a controller, select real-time values, save them to the SD card, get them off really easily over Wi-Fi, and, plot them, graph them, do whatever you like. But we are this close to launching a GS911 portal, which is going to hopefully blow a lot of people's minds, that are into this kind of thing. And that will, once that is up and running, that will evolve as we add functionality. And one of the things we're doing on the GS911 is adding something called, Flight Recorder, where you can select the sampling rate as well as multiple values from different controllers and just set it up and fire and forget, and off it goes, and Bob's your uncle. Eventually it even uploads the data, if you want to, onto the portal. You sit behind your PC or on your phone and you'll see the data, and you can manipulate it from there. There's no need to even get involved in sort of taking it from the bike or something like that. So Ricky, I'm not quite sure when your track days are, but to talk to us, you seem like you would possibly be a good beta tester. So wink, wink, nudge, nudge, give us a shout. I'll pass you on to Pete, and I'm sure they'll want to talk to you.
There you go, Ricky. You can't ask more than that, pal. There'll be all the socials, all the connections for Hex Innovate will be down below. So if you listen to the podcast, check them out. If you're watching the YouTube vid, have a look at the description. Drop them a line, mate. Drop them a line. Can I ask, right, in my limited understanding here, to use the GS911 for telemetry, such as what Ricky's talking, would he have to have the 911 connected to the bike whilst he's doing his track day, or is that something?
Correct.
Yes,
no, it's literally. I mean, the
like a data
GS911 plugged into the port.
Gotcha.
It then. You set it up and it logs whatever you want to log. Currently, you have to tell the GS911, I'm going to do this now, connect to that controller, log it to the thing, and, whilst your ignition is on, this is my run, I'm going to go and do this. What flight recorder is going to do, you set up, you pick what you want to do once you're on the bike or whatever, and you say, this is flight recorder, and it will be in flight recorder mode until you take it out of flight recorder mode. And it will literally just, you leave it in there and it will record whatever it records and, push it up and do whatever it does. And it is intended for these kinds of things. Where the previous one was, it was intended for the workshops and fault finding and those kind of things. I once, many moons ago, got an email which says, I am a dealer technician. I have convinced my dealer principal to buy a GS901. Every dealership should have one of these. This is phenomenal. Thank you very much. Bye. And I'm like, this is great. Who are you? Tell me more. And you remember these, this was still on this device. And turns out it was a Dutch dealer tech, and they had a customer with an RT, a 1200 RT, and the RT would cut out every now and then, and then it's dead, and he literally cannot get it started. But it's dead. It just doesn't want to start. And then, they pick him up and they take it to the workshop, and they would test it, and everything tests fine.
It works
no
fine,
fault codes. It's one of those. They started changing things on the bike because this happened 4 times, 5 times. This guy's like, "Hey guys, I need a new bike, or I need this is insane." This is not a BMW bike if it behaves in this way. And eventually, this tech got the dealer to okay a purchase like this, and he got the customer to okay the tech to drive this, because at the time you had to plug it in, go, I am recording now, and it was recording to the phone over Bluetooth, and he'd go for a ride, and he kept it for a couple of days, and sure enough, he was riding it, went blip, 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 and there it goes, and it dies, and he's like, so he, long story short, eventually he looks at the data and he plots that in, whether he used Excel or whatever he used, and he's going, oh, interesting stuff. So he sees that the injection time of the injectors is, could be normally, 4 to 40 if you're really gunning it, milliseconds. Now, this is technical stuff and you don't need to know this, but remember, this is a technician we're talking to, but you can log data and you can see, oh, well, this is kind of how much it is. And suddenly this just jumped off the charts. This is, we're talking hundreds of milliseconds, and the injectors can't even give that. So he's going, being a clever tech, he's going, well, this is the output. What is causing this? And he goes through the rest of the list. Eventually, he gets to the cylinder head temperature sensor. So that's literally in those RTs, at least. They had 2, a left and a right. These days, they I think only have 1. Correct me if anybody knows what the new 1250 is.
Somebody will.
I'm sure they will. Anyway, and the cylinder head temperature sensor, a log graph that he was looking at, he literally just took the log data and graphed it, and it started at like 15 degrees C, and then sort of made this nice ramp up as the cylinder head heated up, and it got to 90, 94, 92, something like that, and then dropped like a stone to minus 40. Now, for anybody in the tech of those kind of things, minus 40 is literally 0 in the data. It doesn't go lower than that because nobody rides it minus 40. That is 0 on the data, and this thing was reading minus 40, and obviously
I've done minus 38.
Bloody hell, Bruce. Anyway, so what the engine controller was seeing is super cold, and cold means I need to increase the fueling. So it literally ramped up the fueling, flooded the cylinder, and it just and it stalls and it's done. And by the time they get it back to the dealership, this little temperature sensor, being silicon, and silicon goes wrong, had kind of just cooled down and had been okay. And they test everything. They test the sensors. They test everything, and everything tests fine. And there wasn't even a fault code. Now, remember, the intelligence in these controllers evolves as the years go by. At that time, the controller was just saying, this is my temperature, hence this is going to be my injection, and it didn't see that as an issue. Now, these days, we would go, you don't go from 94C to minus 40 in the spat of 1 second or less. Obviously an issue, but at the time it didn't. And this guy went, obviously, sensor, change the sensor, done, sorted. that kind of thing. So that's what it was intended for. But now we're moving into that. What do you want to log? And the more you log, the slower it becomes. The less you log, the faster you can log. And the flight recorder, keep an eye out for that.
There we go. Right. Make sure, who's that? That was Ricky, wasn't it? Yeah, Ricky. Ricky, make sure you send that contact, mate. Make sure you get in touch. Right, last one. Tom Norden 901. That's Tom from a bike thing, isn't it? Ask him when the Bluetooth module is coming out for the eZcan.
Yeah. Tom, you'll be the second to know. I'll be the first. So yeah,
nice one.
Right. That's a dig in my side, in my ribs.
I bet you must get sick of people asking that, because a lot of people, yes, a lot of people have asked.
Yes, because it hurts, and thanks Steve for making the video, but it also shows the need.
Yeah.
So in that sense, I'm humbled, but also pressuring my team. We need to get this done.
Yeah. Well, it's coming, folks. It's coming. Right, we'll move across to Facebook. There's only a couple on Facebook, Stephan, so we're nearly there, pal. Right, first one, Shuja Khan. Apologies if that's not how you say your first name, Shuja. I'm waiting for a Hex controller for the Ducati Desert X. Also, will there be a Bluetooth version that can be controlled via the phone app rather than your PC to set up? Well, we know that's coming. So, Hex controller for the Desert X.
We are currently looking for beta testers. Contact me.
There you go. Oh, wow. You're like, this is going to be like Christmas for a couple of people, isn't it?
Totally.
Right. Shuja, again, details are down below, mate. Drop my line. Simon Broom. Hi, hope you're both well and fit. My question, where do you see the future of motorcycle electronics heading? At the moment, most manufacturers seem to have their own apps that work with various degrees of success. Why don't they just use one Android Auto or Apple CarPlay and let us use the apps we want to on the bikes for music, routing, etc.? So, future of bike electronics.
Difficult to understand exactly what is being asked. Bike electronics, I immediately think the controllers and where they're going and those kind of things, but it seems we're talking more so in terms of how we interact with the electronics. I am hoping that more more OEs will standardize on Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. We are currently doing a little bit of research into the two, because you can imagine, whether you have a fantastic 4x4, but also, on the bikes, I mean, what bike? Africa Twin is a perfect example. Android Auto and Apple CarPlay. If you could, the app that we're talking about, Bluetooth for the eZcan, instead of having that on your phone and so forth, if that was just, on your
dash,
pad, on your navigation, on your dash, and click and, brighter, dimmer, hotter, cooler kind of thing, it has a lot going for it. So I am a sucker for standardization. It just makes things easier. It makes things easier for us. It makes things easier for the industry. But then you look at, I'm by no means a Tesla fanboy, but they do a lot of things really well. But they don't, and they won't go to Apple CarPlay and Android Auto and those kind of things. They insist on doing their own things. So I'm not quite sure. I'm hoping the fact that Honda has sort of, set the trend for Android Auto and Apple CarPlay, that other manufacturers will follow. I have seen on shows, probably pre-COVID, where BMW was thinking of going with their screens and the applications and so forth, but once again, their own ecosystem. I think, I would want to, I'm sure they've got their reasons, and, it's probably monetary in some way or sense. But if you want that momentum, I would go and I would hope that the OEs go Android Auto and Apple CarPlay and accept it and actually develop for that. Especially, I mean, you look at the new BMWs. I mean, this is, I mean, I don't have an iPad the size of the dash of the new RT or K16.
It looks like an 11-inch dash, isn't it? It's crazy.
Are insane.
It's huge.
And, you know, there's a lot of real estate there, and there's a lot of stuff that I could control. And I don't need, I mean, having had a look at the Android Auto and Apple CarPlay specs, you know, they absolutely insist on it does not have to be touchscreen. You can use a scroller or a, you know, joystick of sorts
Buttons
or something like that. So I'm not holding my breath. But in the same sense, I want to say, watch the space. I think there'll come a time where they just go, that's what the industry wants, and you know that they'll adopt it because it's not that difficult, but they have to make the decision.
What about actual bike electronics then? Is there anything out there that doesn't exist that you would like to see on a bike?
That does exist or doesn't exist?
Doesn't exist. It's not yet out there that you think, oh, that would be good on a motorbike. The reason I'm thinking is because I know a couple of manufacturers are starting to push like this third eye radar type thing, you know, like proximity controls. And I've got to admit, my gut reaction to that is to kind of go, oh no, because in my head, I feel like as a rider, you should already know what's round about you. You should already be monitoring your mirrors, looking ahead.
Yeah.
And I just think having technology do it for you would make some people rely on it and not be do.
But that being said, what I am not a great fan of is the rumors I've seen of self-balancing, correcting, those kind of things. I'm like, guys, that's why I ride a bike.
Exactly.
You know, not so many years ago, I bumped into a guy at, what's the German bike show in Cologne, Intermot. I was on the BMW stand and I was sort of having a look, and this guy said, can I, especially in the press days, when it's a little, he's like, and I started talking to him, and 2 seconds flat, and you go, a little more about this stuff than the average Joe that's trained, with a pretty face and it turns out he was one of the sort of designers of, I can't remember exactly, but on the new generation that wasn't released yet. And he alluded to the fact that they had done a lot of work on these new sort of 12, the liquid cooleds, on what the customers wanted. And they had a clear pattern. And then this was then, it might have changed at this, to this point, but they had a clear pattern. From what he was telling me, you have got a category of 3 people. You've got the absolute purist who says, if this does not need ABS by legislation, I wouldn't even have that. Because it is what it is. I want a pure bike. I want the least possible intrusion. That's what I want. Then you've got the person saying, as little as possible, but there are a couple of things that are cool. It's kind of nice telling me that, hey, dude, your front tire, should be a little more inflated, because, that's one of the biggest reasons for crashes. And then there is the one, if my car can do it, my bike should do it. Then you're getting into that touring realm. He says, but by far the volume is the purest. The second to that is the medium, and then there are the couple of guys. Now, remember, this changes with the generations of people and so forth. If you look at the new EVs and what they do in terms of motorcycles only and so forth, it does change. But there's this perception, and to me, a motorcycle is still that's. I almost want to say my last bit of freedom. I want to be in control. I feel I need to be in control, but. Man, just as the eZcan, I was telling somebody the other day that, we have the strobing feature. You can flash to pass and it'll strobe the headlights, and you can sort of hit the horn only if you selected it with installation, but you hit the horn and your headlights strobe. And the horn one has saved my ass twice. Now, that doesn't sound like a lot, but twice is 2 times too many if it didn't. And that was, I literally accelerated and a guy pulled out in front of me because I don't know why, but he did. And riding different bikes a lot. So once you ride one bike, you are absolutely in tune. You know where every control is. But if you ride a lot of different bikes, you kind of think you're grabbing at something and you're missing it by this much. But I sort of, hit the horn and the horn went off and it strobed, and I could see the reaction was, it's that bike, it's that thing. Whereas if you hear a horn, you're like, where the hell is this? And, they still roll forward and kind of thing. And in the same sense, whether we tour, I think of myself going through Wales, I'm like going, bloody hell, this is pretty, and somebody decelerated in front of me. And that's just that warning that I've had in my cars that I drive that goes, and I go, well, what else? I was just looking there and somebody hit the brakes. That I like. That I feel is not intrusive. It still has me react, but it's enough to be, I was looking at something. And, yes, you should say I should focus on the road, but hell, I don't know when I'm getting here again. The reason why my average speed through Africa was 45 k's an hour was because I know I'm not going to get there anytime soon. And you're going, wow.
You're trying to take it all in. Yeah,
exactly. It's just too much to take in. And you do get distracted. And that's what I like. And I think all bikes should have that feature. How they alert you and how loud that is to get your attention, I'm not sure. But that to me is an amazing feature. That will, I've seen so many rear endings. It's just, it shouldn't be. And it's not always, you're not a poor driver, a rider or whatever you want to call it. But so that's something I would like to see. But the rest, I dig tech. I love tech. In South Africa, I still have in the office a R100 RS in bits, but that's going to be, I have plans for it because when I bought it just before we moved here, it was, I just want to go on a Sunday ride and not go, how would I log the suspension movement and allow the customer to fine-tune their suspension, because people don't understand suspension and they need you because it just literally makes the ride that much better. And I just want to go, no electronics, nothing.
Just for you, off you go.
That's the enjoyment part of it. If I use it for commuting or for traveling hundreds of miles, you probably want something that is, there we go. It's got all the bells and whistles. But I would want the forward warning or the sudden sort of distance sort of, minimization warning. But I'm not that keen on any of the other things. Maybe I'm one of those purists, but I'm not a purist at heart. But yeah, as little as possible while keeping it comfortable. But I love that one safety feature. I really dig.
That's interesting because my gut reaction to that safety feature you just spoke about has always been no, just no. But listening to you give your reasons for it has made me go, well, it's not necessarily quite like, I think to me, I was thinking you're not a good rider if you're relying on that. But what you just said there is a practical aspect of it, in that we've all done that. We've all been like, oh my God, wow, that's incredible. Or
many of us
sometimes
have been lucky.
Yes, yeah, but your attention can just wane at times. You can be the best rider in the world, but you cannot stay 100% fixed on everything round about you at all times. So yeah, I think I'm probably going to have to eat my words there. It maybe is a sensible, good idea. Right, that is the last one of all the questions there from Simon. So thank you very much, Simon. I have a question of my own. However, as we were chatting, it's become apparent.
Make it a difficult one.
It's not, but I think it's probably an unrealistic question to ask you because it's unfair. In that, okay,
sorry,
I'll
you're
ask.
breaking up. Can't hear you.
I'll ask it.
Really bad.
But I fully expect you probably not to answer. because this is going to be unfair. But in my head, I'm thinking, what is the one thing that you would really like to create? Like the product that you really want to create for the motorcycle industry that you've not yet done or even looked at?
Can I take a rain check?
Yes.
Let's talk about this over a beer.
Because I suddenly thought to myself,
I do have a little black book with a lot of ideas.
Yeah.
But, once you have a product and a company, you owe it to your customer and your customer base to evolve it and build it and so forth. So, those ideas haven't quite gotten the time they could deserve. There are a couple of really cool ideas, but I'd take the fifth on that, if I may.
No problem at all, man. No worries. Stephan, chatting with you here, it's clearly evident that you're a man with not only a load of passion for what you do and a deep love for what you do, but an incredible understanding for what you do. And I think it certainly made me feel that, that the end products that you and your company create, well, there's a reason that they're the industry standard these days, like multiple accessory hub, but it's Hex eZcan, isn't it? It's just, certainly for a BMW, that's just the go-to. It's what you chuck on there. You guys work with Denali as well now, don't you? Because there's the Denali one, which is just a branded version of your product. Correct. Is that correct? Yeah. Cool. Awesome.
Yeah, so we have a really good relationship with them because we've always designed the product to be able to be the accessory manager for whatever you want to put on.
Yeah.
But we do what I underestimated was the customers go, we love your product, we love what it does. What should I add? What product should I add to it? What should I control? I mean, and it's understandable. You look at the light spec here. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 brands, and that's just what I've been testing as of recent and doing a couple of things. We are testing a lot of stuff, and it takes a lot of time, and these things are expensive. Mm-hmm. So they look to us for guidance, and we try and, put our recommendation to things that we know that are really good. And, I had many a beer. I have to make this statement. This goes out to a good friend of mine who's recently moved to the States. But he once, we sat down and it got quiet. And he went and he lifted his beer like this and he said, beer is proof that God loves us. And over a beer, Eric, who was they've been recently purchased by Vision X, one of their other suppliers. But Eric, who started and headed up Denali or Twisted Throttle for that matter. We've had a couple of discussions over beer at the BMW MOAs, which is the Motorcycles of America rally, which was one of those things that has granted me the opportunity to see so much of the States, because they try and make the MOA rally in different areas of the country, every time. And anyway, so we've sat there and we had a lot of discussions, and they have really cool products and they have really passionate people, driving their product and their design. And, you look at the product and you can see somebody looked at it and went, it needs to be aesthetically pleasing as well. You can be phenomenally good functionally, but, you sometimes need a squarish kind of light for this bike, but you need the round one for that bike because that's just the type of bike it is. And you look at something and you go, that works. And you need those options. And, they've been really good at doing that. Besides having the great quality. I mean, they get their products and have been co-designing them with Vision X, whom I'm not sure if you know, but Vision X were the original designers of the light bar. The light bar was designed by them. They literally had, I'm sure they will correct me or somebody will, but they got, I think it was the mining industry that had a need for more light and robust light and that kind of thing. And they eventually, one of the engineers came up with the thought, but we can extrude a housing and we can have sort of boards of certain lengths, and we can put as many of those in as far as, and you can cut this extrusion to however long you want it. And, we've got all these fins and we've got the cooling, and hence the light bulb was born. And that shows you who they partnered with and sort of, where this whole history comes down. So their products are, there's a lot of history in that, and history is experience. I always tell my team, look at other people's experience. It's so much cheaper than your own. And if you can pick somebody with good experience, you're backing a winning horse. And that's what they've done. So we love working. We have adapters for the Bahas, and we have adapters for the Morimoto, and we do the dynamics lights, and we do a couple of other weird lights. And, we want to give customers options, but, we've got a really great relationship with these guys. And there are a couple of things in the pipeline as well that I think, eZcan customers would like. Lights are no longer just lights. That's all I'm going to say. But there's a lot of, there's a couple of things in the wings there.
Oh, wow. Looking forward to what's coming in the future then, for sure. Certainly with the new GS that may well be coming out later this year, next year, we shall see. If I get my hands on one, I'm going to be on the lookout for some toys for that, I'll tell you. Right, Stephan.
Let me know when you get your hands on one of those. I'd love to have a look at it.
Yeah, for sure, absolutely, for sure. If people want to find out more about Hex Innovate and the products that you create, where do they go? What do they do?
hexinnovate.com, and we've got the microsites Hex GS 911. And Hex eZcan. But, go to hexinnovate.com. That's where they'll find us. And, you can go anywhere from there and you'll get hold of us. And if you contact us or the support tickets or something like it, that goes to the right people. And, if you've got the right people, they'll funnel it to me or to wherever it needs to go.
Absolutely. Folks, all the links will be down below for the website, for the socials, everything like that. It'll all be down below in the show notes for the audio podcast, and then for the video, check out the vid description. Everything, down below. If you are interested in getting a Hex eZcan, or you want to know how to use the GS 911, there are loads of videos online on YouTube for it. But if you're here in the UK, I suggest you head towards a bike thing. Steve Abel over at a bike thing. The man, very much like Stephan, he lives and breathes for all of this stuff. And Steve has a wealth of expertise in installing and setting up the Hex eZcans in particular. He's the man to go to if you want to ask any questions here in the UK. He's right there. And he's got a lovely setup up there as well. So there's a wee plug for you, Steve. Right, Stephan, been an absolute pleasure, pal. I'm sorry this has taken so long for us to get around to getting this done, but it's been fantastic, and I look forward to sharing a beer with you at the ABR. It's going to be a good one.
Absolutely, not just one. The second one's on me.
Oh, okay.
No, listen, absolutely. ABR is going to be phenomenal. Look forward to that. And thanks for having me. It's been a blast. And what a way to end the week.
Absolutely. It's been a pleasure chatting with you, mate, and I look forward to doing it again.
Likewise.
Right, folks, hope you've enjoyed this one. Keep doing your thing. Get on out there whenever you can. Look after those that you love, but most importantly, live your life. Woo-ha!
Cheers.